Before the sun rises over these ancient stone statues, the thick braided ropes binding them are snapped by the morning gale. It's an omen. Here, panic unfolds. A laboring mother is desperately ordered to delay birth until dawn. But new life can't be controlled. Twins are born, one at night, the other at dawn. A wide-eyed elder steps forward, shouting they are destined to rule over the Sugai. This page shows the quiet aftermath. Hours later, a man sits completely alone, weeping into his hands. Nearby, the two infants rest swaddled together in a woven basket, one with hair pale as morning, the other dark as midnight. From their first breath, these infants fulfill a prophecy. Their birth effectively shatters the family's peace, leaving their father weeping while the twins are categorized by the time of day they arrived. Years pass, and that pale-haired twin, Yuru, seems to have outrun that dark prologue. This page shows him riding freely along a treacherous mountain trail, casually admiring the clouded sky. He's completely at ease in the wilderness. Noting the worsening weather, he calmly decides to head back to tend the fields, approaching his day with a strict practical rhythm. This wide establishing shot reveals the massive scale of his home, a sprawling, terraced village carved directly into the high mountains, heavily fortified and entirely isolated. It's an unforgiving landscape. When Yuru returns, a younger boy named Danji intercepts him, loudly scolding him for hunting alone, echoing their anxiety about the dangers lurking in the peaks. Yuru waves the concern away. He casually points to the weathered stone wolf statues guarding the path, expressing absolute confidence that Sayu-sama will watch over him. He backs up that confidence with concrete results. This sequence highlights the large pheasant hanging from his saddle, a difficult catch that instantly draws hungry, excited looks from his neighbors. These interactions frame him as a beloved, essential pillar of the community. Farmers pause their harvest to greet him warmly, and a local mother immediately demands her son mirror Yuru's tireless work ethic. By mastering this harsh environment and bringing in vital food, Yuru secures his own independence. He flawlessly executes his duties, and in exchange, the village grants him the freedom to roam. But that open mountain air is a facade. Following Yuru away from the lively courtyard takes us deep into a dim, flickering subterranean corridor. This panel reveals a massive wooden cell sealed with the same sacred ropes from the prologue. Inside, dressed in the pristine robes of a shrine maiden, sits his twin sister, Asa. Despite the thick wooden bars separating them, these panels capture a quiet warmth between the siblings. Yuru drops his hunting gear to sit on the cold floor, met by Asa's gentle, unbroken smile. The conversation quickly turns to survival. Here, Yuru details his worries about the failing harvest and a lack of rain, laying out his plan to hunt and salt meat to keep the village fed through winter. The mention of a food shortage triggers Asa's deepest anxiety. With a sudden shift in demeanor, she asks if the villagers, and worse, if Yuru himself, will abandon the mountain for work in the lower lands, just like their parents did. Yuru's response is immediate and fierce. This sequence focuses on his clenched fist and resolute expression as he vows to never leave. He explicitly states he trained to hunt for one reason: to become indispensable to the village's survival. Yuru's commitment to the mountains is purely functional. He explicitly trained as a hunter to make himself indispensable to the village's food supply, ensuring he never has to choose between survival and staying by Asa's side. The isolation of their mountain is only occasionally broken by outsiders. These panels show the arrival of Dara, a rugged merchant acting as the village's sole tether to modern society. Dara brings a stark reality check. This scene depicts him trading salt and medicine while casually mentioning a failing economy and a pandemic raging through the cities below. Yet Yuru shows zero interest in the macro politics of the lower lands. The focus here lands entirely on his grateful smile when Dara tosses him a colorful temari ball, a rare, simple comfort he can bring back to Asa. When the merchant eyes his hunting gear for a lucrative trade, Yuru politely refuses. His bow and arrows are the tools that secure his place on the mountain, and they are strictly not for sale. To Yuru, the outside world offers nothing but disease, economic ruin, and the threat of separation. The lower lands are a risk to his vow, driving him to draw the borders of his world tighter, locking himself in alongside his sister. High on a winding mountain path, the merchant Dara begins his descent toward the lower lands. In this village, leaving for work is usually a one-way trip. Those who go rarely return. While Danji stares longingly at the path down the mountain, Yuru stays focused on the dirt. He binds a fresh sheaf of wheat with practiced, steady hands. To him, a lifetime spent in these fields is exactly what he wants. Yuru's protective streak centers on his sister, Asa. She holds a duty so important and so sensitive that her very existence is kept secret from almost everyone, including Danji. In this community, safety is defined by two things: the isolation of the mountain and the absolute concealment of the girl. That isolation is suddenly tested by a heavy, rhythmic thumping that vibrates the air, causing the mountain wind to stutter. Yuru points to the sky at a perfectly straight white line. To him, this isn't an engine exhaust, it's a dragon wind, a sign of a world he only understands through folklore. But the sound changes, becoming deeper and more oppressive. Yuru lifts a handful of dry dirt and lets it slip through his fingers. He can feel the air current shifting. His hunter's instincts tell him that whatever is making that noise is closing in. The trees begin to thrash as a massive, invisible weight pushes down. The rhythmic pulsing is now loud enough to drown out the wind. The villagers look for dragons, having no words for the approaching mechanical reality. A deafening crack shatters the sky. This wide shot reveals the truth. The entire mountain was enveloped in a massive energy dome that has just fractured into shards of light. 3 modern helicopters descend. Their spinning blades create a jarring sight, hovering over the weathered stone statues guarding the gates. Panic erupts instantly. Below the metal giants, villagers are paralyzed, staring at machines that shouldn't exist in their world. Men in urban camouflage and black balaclavas fast rope from the machines. Within seconds, a soldier has a gloved hand clamped over a villager's mouth and a combat knife pressed to his throat. Granny Yamaha instantly realizes the barrier has been undone from the outside. She orders her men to find and hide Yuru, suspecting he is the primary target. This isn't a random raid. It is a coordinated strike team moving with professional efficiency to secure the village's most important resident. Yuru and Danji crest a hill toward the lower terraces, hoping to reach safety. But the fields have been turned into a graveyard. Neighbors and friends lie sprawled across the dirt, slaughtered among their scattered farm tools before they could even drop their baskets. The air is thick with the scent of copper. Danji is physically sickened by the scale of the carnage, his mind unable to reconcile the peaceful morning with this sudden mass death. A squad of masked soldiers rounds the corner. They spot the boys and immediately raise their weapons to engage. The traditional life of the mountain has been dismantled in minutes. The precision of modern firearms has left the village defense completely non-existent. As the soldiers level their guns, Yuru shoves himself in front of Danji, using his own body as a shield. In a single motion, Yuru draws his longbow and releases. 2 arrows slice through the air, burying themselves into the shoulders of the gunman. Even against body armor, his precision is lethal. The soldiers return fire. A bullet grazes past Danji's head, shattering the rock behind him with a force no arrow can replicate. Yuru realizes they cannot win this standing up. He drags Danji toward a weathered stone shrine marker, his muscles straining as he slides the massive block aside to reveal a hidden tunnel leading toward his sister. Surviving this invasion requires more than archery. Yuru must dive into the village's deepest secrets. At the village square, helicopters hover low. A new figure descends a rope ladder into the ruins. A young woman in an oversized hoodie and neat braids steps off the ladder. She offers a cheerful wave to the villagers, who are still gripping axes and cleavers in their trembling hands. One burly villager ignores her friendly gesture. He tightens his grip on a heavy meat cleaver, preparing to strike down the girl in one final, desperate act of defiance. The girl curls her fingers into a playful, biting motion and whispers, "Chumpy chump." In a fraction of a second,
An invisible force rips the man's entire upper torso and head away in a geyser of crimson. This isn't a war of technology or tradition anymore. An unarmed girl has just exerted a level of violence that makes the military's rifles look like toys.
The sudden eruption of hyper-violent carnage shatters the quiet of a sun-baked mountain village. Without warning, an unseen force begins a brutal massacre in the square. Fueled by pure adrenaline-driven desperation, 3 surviving villagers snap out of their horror. Gripping heavy wood-cutting axes, they charge blindly at the source of the chaos, a lone girl in an oversized hoodie. She doesn't even flinch. Instead, she lazily pinches the air, chanting, "Chomp, chomp, chomp." With every cheerful word, massive, invisible entities engage the attackers. Chunks of the men's torsos and limbs are violently ripped away midair, spraying the mountain dirt and blood. The sheer physical trauma is matched only by the terrifying juxtaposition of her demeanor. She flashes a bright, innocent smile at a weeping child, promising she doesn't bite kids, while casually crushing an injured survivor flat into the earth behind her. Completely unbothered by the slaughter, she shakes 2 pieces of bright pink gum into her mouth, pulls out a smartphone, and calls her ground squad to report the cleared perimeter. This isolated community now faces a weaponized, invisible force, an ambush led by killers who find the slaughter playful. Down in the shadowed, lower forested path, a secondary, simultaneous front of the invasion has already concluded. The supernatural slaughter of the village square gives way to the gritty aftermath of a modern tactical firefight. Elite, heavily armed soldiers in camouflage lie dead among the trees, their blood dripping onto the muddy forest floor. The unlikely victor of this skirmish is Dara. With his rugged robes, he looks like a simple merchant, but the smoking modern hand and blood-stained combat knife in his grip prove otherwise. Wiping sweat from his brow, he looks up at the smoke billowing from the village. His relaxed traitor persona vanishes the moment he realizes the mountain's protective barrier has been completely shattered. He smoothly dials his contact Hana on a flip phone. His eyes narrow as the call connects, confirming his worst fear. The enemy's communication signal is successfully penetrating the mountain's defenses. Dara's focus shifts instantly. A broken barrier is a problem, but this new arrival carries a far more lethal weight. Deep within the claustrophobic, dark stone corridors of the village keep lies the final, most heavily guarded battleground. An imposing woman draped in a heavy black coat and a dark eye patch looms over a defeated, bleeding elderly guard, standing directly outside a warded prison cell. Relying on raw, terrifying power, she casually aims her palm at the sacred ropes and unleashes a point-blank kinetic blast. The heavy wooden bars are instantly obliterated into a shockwave of jagged splinters. Hearing the explosion, Yuru sprints down the hallway. He skids to a halt, his heart plummeting as he finds the cell utterly destroyed and the white-robed shrine maiden lying motionless in the debris. The intruder slowly turns to face him, initiating a brutal psychological mind game. A surprisingly warm, gentle smile spreads across her face as she claims to be Asa, Yuru's true little sister, finally here to rescue him. In the span of a single breath, that familial warmth twists into a bloodthirsty, wide-eyed glare as she cheerfully announces her intention to slaughter absolutely everyone else in the village. Yuru's shock violently combusts into pure rage. Screaming a rejection of her twisted claim, he draws his bowstring back to its absolute limit and fires a projectile straight at her. The arrow tears through the dim corridor. She makes no effort to dodge, simply raising a bare hand and effortlessly catching the projectile mid-flight. Yuru's arrows find no mark, and his memory of a sister is replaced by a killer in an eye patch. She has walked through the village's physical and spiritual defenses with equal ease. A massive explosion erupts from the ancient stone wall, throwing boulders down the mountainside as the battle spills out of the keep and into the open. Modern military hardware immediately fills the airspace. Heavily armed helicopters circle the mountain like vultures, tracking the surviving villagers from above. Sprinting past the crumbling masonry, Dara deduces their infiltration strategy. The enemy forces bypass the external defenses entirely by pretending to be a mountain rescue operation. Daera's tactical evasion proves he's dealing with a highly coordinated military incursion, one that is actively funneling him directly into a deadly bottleneck at the village exit. The disparate storylines violently collide as Daera halts his escape in the clearing. His path is entirely blocked by Gabi, standing alone in the middle of the road. Manifesting directly from thin air behind Daera's back is a colossal, nightmarish set of floating black jaws, lined with razor-sharp white teeth and covered in dozens of swirling eyes. Gabi smiles with arrogant confidence, deducing Daera is a seer. She remains completely unfazed, even as he instantly levels his stolen modern handgun squarely at her. Daera skips the banter, unloading his weapon into the floating nightmare. The bullets ricochet off the creature's teeth. Realizing his sidearm is useless, he rips a grenade from his sash and hurls it at Gabi's feet, wiping her arrogant smile away. A blinding flash ignites the clearing, followed by a deafening roar as the grenade detonates, swallowing the ancient stone pathway in a fierce, fiery explosion. As the smoke clears, the message is plain. To survive an ancient shadow, Daera must rely on modern explosives and a total lack of hesitation.
Inside the dim village keep, the traditional defense of the mountain people fails instantly. Yuru fires an arrow at maximum draw, only for the projectile to be effortlessly caught between the fingers of a woman wearing his sister's face. A terrifying anomaly follows. A writhing, black shadow erupts from the woman's sleeve, like a living ribbon, snaking across the stone floor with predatory speed. The shadow violently wraps around the throat of the injured village elder, pinning him against the wall as he gasps for air. Yuru can only watch as his reality collapses into supernatural horror. Realizing the village is lost, the elder forces out one final command. He tells Daera to take Yuru and run, ordering them to abandon the keep immediately. This initial skirmish proves that traditional archery is useless here. The village faces a power that is fluid, fast, and entirely indifferent to physical barriers. Daera seizes Yuru by the collar, dragging him through the crumbling ruins, as the village falls into a state of total screaming panic. Daera leads the way to the village perimeter, stopping at the stone statues of Sayu-sama. He ignores the chaos behind them, frantically digging through loose rocks to uncover a hidden entrance. They scramble into a small, dark tunnel leading beneath the mountain's surface. It is a narrow, claustrophobic escape route designed for this exact catastrophe. Daera's actions reveal he is far more than a simple traveling merchant. He possesses a deep, secret knowledge of the village's spiritual geography, a map that is now Yuru's only hope for survival. The pair emerges lower down the trail, but the quiet of the mountain is gone. The deafening roar of massive military helicopter blades suddenly fills the air, completely drowning out the natural sounds of the forest. Modern military units have already cordoned off the mountain. Snipers in the brush paint Yuru and Daera with neon red laser sights as high-tech choppers hover directly over the tree line. The sheer shock of the situation breaks Yuru. He clutches his head, frantically hyperventilating, as he tries to reconcile his rural, isolated life with the sudden arrival of professional execution squads. The boys are flanked and pinned against the heavy stone statue pedestals. They are no longer just fleeing a village raid. They are the primary targets of a coordinated aerial capture operation. This is a collision of two completely separate worlds. Ancient stone guardians sit surrounded by modern ballistics, advanced thermal scopes, and real-time aerial surveillance. Daera forces a carved stone amulet into Yuru's hands, shouting to clear the statue's base. Yuru frantically lines up the relic. It locks into the mechanism with a heavy, metallic click, signaling the defense is active. To complete the activation, Daera seizes Yuru's wrist and violently smashes his palm onto a jagged edge of the stone. Bright crimson blood drips steadily onto the ancient carving. The timing is measured in fractions of a millisecond. Above them, a sniper's finger tightens on the trigger, aiming directly for Yuru's chest just as the blood makes contact with the relic. This activation demands a visceral, physical price. The mountain's power only responds to a direct, painful sacrifice of the master's own blood. A sudden eruption of blinding light washes over the mountainside.
The glare is intense enough to short out the helicopter's electronics and leave the pilots and snipers completely sightless. Inside the cockpits, instruments erupt in sparks. The helicopters lose all mechanical control, shuddering violently as they begin to plummet toward the forest below. From the light, two colossal beings manifest.
They are creatures of crackling energy and furious wind, rising directly from the statue pedestals. These spectral beasts launch themselves upward. With massive, ethereal jaws, they begin shredding through the steel hulls and reinforced rotors of the military aircraft. The shower of flaming metal proves that thermal optics and aviation are useless here. These ancient entities have completely neutralized the military's technological advantage in a matter of seconds. Further up the trail, a girl named Gabby watches the smoke rise with a pouting, arrogant smirk. She ignores the wreckage, focusing instead on calming her own horrific, multi-eyed daemon. The energy from the statues coalesces into two towering figures, standing atop a massive boulder. One is a muscular man with shark-like teeth. The other is a fierce woman with her arms crossed. Their personalities are immediate. The man offers an arrogant grin, looking for a weak master to control, while the woman remains unyielding and serious in her commitment to the contract. Dara stands calmly beside the paralyzed Yuru. He explains that these guardians have been known by many names: ghosts, monsters, or cryptids, depending on the eye of the beholder. Yuru has survived the ambush, but the price is absolute. His life is now permanently tied.
High above the brightly lit mountainside, the village keep has been blown wide open. The sky is a clear, warm blue, but the ancient stone walls are reduced to a heap of jagged rubble. Standing at the edge of the destruction is the woman who calls herself Asa. A pitch-black shadow daemon extends directly from her coat, dangling the battered village elder over the ruins. The shadow daemon treats the man like a rag doll. With a sharp flick of Asa's wrist, the entity violently hurls the elder away, only to yank him back and slam him ruthlessly into the hard dirt. Asa looks down at him with a cold, burning glare. She doesn't raise her voice, but her visible eye shows a deep-seated hatred as she promises that Yamaha, the old witch, will eventually pay for her crimes. She turns away and descends the stone stairs, ignoring the mother and son huddled against the wall in terror. While they stare in horror at the shattered fortress, Asa simply strolls past them as if they aren't even there. She hasn't raised her voice or even broken a sweat. While the survivors tremble against the stone, she simply continues her descent, leaving the battered elder in the dirt. Deep beneath the village at the base of the mountain trail, Yuru and Dara stop to catch their breath. They've just emerged from a tunnel that Yuru hasn't seen since he was a child. He remembers standing here by candlelight with his father. Long ago, a former lord built this secret tunnel. It's meant for dire emergencies. This wooden ladder ascends directly to the pedestals of the divine left and right. This hidden failsafe has remained a secret to almost everyone in the village, waiting for a catastrophic event exactly like the one unfolding above. Yuru looks up in shock. Standing atop the crushed boulders are two towering muscular figures that were, until moments ago, nothing more than stone statues. The figures look down at him and confirm his father's old stories. They identify themselves as the divine left and right and announce that from this moment forward, they are Yuru's Daemons. The majestic tension is undercut as Right aggressively grinds his knuckles into Yuru's scalp, questioning their new master. But Dara interrupts, pointing urgently over his shoulder. Two hostiles are approaching. They must get down the mountain immediately. The legends describe the divine left and right as supreme guardians, yet within seconds of their awakening, they're trading insults and nujis. For Yuru, the transition to commanding mythological warriors begins with a knuckle rub to the scalp. A cheerfully annoyed voice cuts through the smoke of a crashed helicopter. A girl in a hoodie named Gabby strolls out of the dust, complaining about running into a pair of toughies. Looming behind her is a horrific entity, a floating wall of razor-sharp teeth and unblinking, swirling eyes. Yuru stares in shock, while Dara screams in terror. He hit her with a grenade moments ago, yet she hasn't a single scratch.
Gabi puffs out her cheeks, offended they'd call her demon a monster, and proudly warns them not to underestimate her chompers. She pauses to size Yuru up, stopping the conversation to correct his age. By the village's system, he's 17, but Gabi notes that down the mountain, he's only 16. This modern world at the base of the mountain has its own demons, and they are every bit as horrific and resilient as the ancient guardians Yuru just awakened. Gabi points a finger gun, flashing a bright grin. She identifies Yuru as Asa's big brother, demanding he come with her. The name Asa triggers a horrific memory: the eye patch-wearing woman standing over a destroyed cell, promising to kill everyone else. When asked if she and Asa were responsible for the village massacre, Gabi winks. She is entirely unashamed of the slaughter. The confusion leaves Yuru's eyes, replaced by searing rage. He pulls a fresh arrow from his quitter, tightening his grip. Right and left attempt tactical advice, but Yuru cuts them off. Locking a fierce, uncompromising gaze on Gabi, he orders his Daemons to stay back. With his guardians at his back, and the person responsible for the massacre standing in front of him, Yuru doesn't wait for orders. He draws his bow, locks his target, and decides exactly how this encounter ends.
Amidst the swirling smoke of a ruined village, Yuru stands his ground. His people have just been slaughtered, and he has the orchestrator locked directly in his sights. The warmth in his eyes is completely gone. He issues a simple, chillingly calm command to the towering demons flanking him. Do what you please. The shark-toothed giant known as Right breaks into an ecstatic roar. He launches himself like a massive cannonball directly over the battlefield, diving purposefully to secure the surviving villagers. On the ground, his counterpart Left unleashes absolute devastation. With blinding speed, she buries a roundhouse kick into the center of a monstrous shadow beast, cracking the very stone beneath her feet from the kinetic force. Yuru and his demons have seized complete control of the mountain. Every move they make forces their enemies into a desperate, reactive defense. Facing this onslaught, Gabi scrambles backward in absolute panic. She trips over the uneven ground, just as an arrow buries itself deep into the rocky dirt, inches from her face. Yuru's grip on his bow is shivering. It has nothing to do with fear. It's a massive surge of pure adrenaline driving him as he ruthlessly prepares a second shot. Before he can release the string, the colossal tooth daemon violently whips around, its shadowy jaws snatching Gabi safely out of the air to avoid the hit. Yuru charges forward to press the hunt. He completely ignores Dara, the local merchant, who was frantically waving his arms and begging to just get off the mountain. Meanwhile, Right is sitting with the survivors, genuinely offended. The massive beast is pouting because the children fainted at the mere sight of him. But the comedy doesn't register with Yuru. His thirst for vengeance blinds him to everything else, turning him into a relentless, single-minded hunter amidst the chaos. As Yuru closes in, a new figure intercepts. A girl in a black coat dives into the line of fire to shield Gabi. Despite the arrow pointed at her throat, the girl doesn't flinch. She simply identifies herself as Asa, Yuru's true little sister. Yuru violently rejects this. In his mind, this is an impossible lie. His real sister is safely tucked away at the village keep, carrying out her duties. But his own daemon contradicts him. Right takes a deep breath, sniffs the air, and confirms the undeniable truth. The blood running through this girl's veins smells exactly like Yuru's. The tension snaps. Asa realizes her brother actually survived the massacre, and she immediately bursts into tears of profound, overwhelming relief. Yuru stares at the very person he swore to kill, realizing she shares his own blood. Dara abruptly shatters the family reunion. He grabs Yuru and demands they retreat immediately, pointing to the structural collapse threatening the rest of the village. They mutually agree to pull out. Yuru lowers his bow, effectively pausing the conflict, but leaving massive, unanswered questions hanging in the air between them. The group drops everything and breaks into a high-speed sprint down the mountain trail, a frantic physical escape from the blood and rubble. Far behind them, a massive, humming energy barrier materializes. A towering dome of light completely seals the ruined mountain peak away from the outside world. The immediate violence of the village has ended, but the group is now physically severed from their home. They are moving into a world where they have no allies and no place to hide.
Suddenly, the reality shifts entirely. The group runs straight into a couple of ordinary hikers, lounging on a bench in brightly colored windbreakers. The contrast is jarring. Just miles from a magical slaughter, these hikers are completely oblivious, casually chatting about a local urban legend regarding a mysterious lost village. Dara and Yuru blur Cass N in a dead sprint, leaving the hikers bewildered by the sudden collision of magical war with their mundane walk. But Dara delivers a chilling warning. The village is erased. The protective barrier is broken. Lying low is impossible because Yuru is now the target. Yuru faces the descent. His home is gone, and the people he trusted have vanished behind a wall of light. He survived the destruction of his home, only to be cast into an unfamiliar reality where his past is a lie and there is absolutely no turning back. Down on the modern gravel road, the brutal tension of the mountain massacre instantly evaporates into a frantic escape. Dara is moving fast, shoving Yuru's woven basket and hunting gear into the open trunk of a silver hatchback. Look closely at Yuru's face in this panel. He stands rigidly, sweating in sheer terror at the metal vehicle. Contrast that with the massive demons, left and right, casually towering on the roof, entirely unbothered by the mortal panic directly below them. The driver steps out. This is Hana, Dara's junior and a fellow demon retainer. She introduces herself quickly, but the urgency remains. Dara points up to the demons, scanning the perimeter to confirm the path is clear. But they hit a massive roadblock. Yuru takes a trembling step back, flat out refusing to get inside what he calls an utterly bizarre contraption. Dara desperately translates the technology, explaining that the automobile is made of iron and serves as a carriage for the world below the mountain. The ancient beings still give them a blank, bewildered stare. Frustrated, Hana violently slaps the hood of the car, screaming that the horses are in here. That physical, aggressive explanation finally bridges the gap for the ancient beings. Yuru reluctantly climbs in. To survive, he must rapidly adapt to a bizarre, hyper-fast modern reality that defies every rule he grew up with. The hatchback tears down the winding mountain road. Inside, Dara finally leans back in the passenger seat and exhales a long, exhausted breath. He recaps the chaos. They unleashed the divine left and right, took down the helicopters, and successfully kicked the enemy Daemon pair's Tekin. That relief dies instantly. A sharp tapping hits the glass. Left is casually hanging upside down from the roof, peering directly into the passenger window to announce that another Daemon pair is rapidly drawing near. But it's not an enemy. Galloping elegantly outside the speeding automobile is a spectral white horse. Riding it is a serene woman in flowing robes, effortlessly keeping pace with the modern engine. The ancient beings exchange pleasantries, noting it's been about 400 years since they last crossed paths. The rider peers through the window and spots Yuru in the back seat. Notice how her serene smile shifts into an expression of quiet, knowing sympathy. She realizes the heavy burden placed upon a child who now commands the twins who sunder day and night. With a final neigh, the horse accelerates, leaving the car behind in a trail of ethereal light. Hana and Yuru are left clutching their seats, their jaws completely unhinged in absolute wide-eyed shock. While the modern world is terrifyingly alien to Yuru, the Shadow Realm itself operates on rules completely untethered from human boundaries, seamlessly crossing between ancient magic and modern highways. Back up high on the old Higashi village trail, the magical flight is gone. Asa sits on a fallen log in the grim, silent woods. Beside her, Gabby rests her head, bleeding heavily into her oversized hoodie by a weathered stone marker. Heavy boots crunch against the dirt. Kagemori arrives with a masked tactical rescue squad. He takes one look at Gabby's blood-soaked clothes, and his expression immediately tightens. These are serious arrow wounds, passing clean through her leg and embedding deep in her shoulder. Kagemori turns to Asa, his tone dropping. The math isn't adding up. Yuru escaped with a highly dangerous older man, and Kagemori needs to know exactly how they lost control of the situation. Gabby casually mentions the man was called Dara. Watch Kagemori's face. The realization hits him like a physical blow. He screams the name, Tadera. Covering his mouth, he grasps his massive miscalculation. Without his Daemon retainer, his soldiers walk directly into an unwinnable slaughter. Asa lowers her head, her visible eye filled with heavy guilt. She made the emotional call to let her brother go, and that single decision directly resulted in the brutal crippling of her own squad. A cold drop of water hits Kagimori's glasses. Within seconds, a torrential, freezing downpour washes over the mountain. The tactical extraction turns into a miserable, muddy trudge as the soldiers carry Gabby's stretcher through the rain. Minutes bleed into hours. The heavy lifting and the freezing mud take their toll. Utterly exhausted and panting, the lead stretcher bearer finally collapses to his knees, dropping the heavy handles. He stares straight ahead in utter despair. He points through the rain. They are looking at the exact same weathered stone marker they left hours ago. This is their 5th time passing it. They've hit a spatial village barrier, a supernatural cage that refuses to let them leave the mountain. Far away from the cursed loop, the silver hatchback pulls into a brightly lit, neon-soaked highway service area. Yuru has traded his traditional robes for a modern tunic. Look at this panel. He is experiencing pure, wide-eyed culinary shock over the white rice and kelp. Outside, Dara has shed his rugged guise for a gaudy floral shirt. Yuru calls it the food of the gods. But as he looks down at his hands, the joy suddenly turns to ash in his mouth. The dark reality of the cold cell and the mountain bloodshed crashes right back down on him. He stares out the window, gripping the food, and whispers that he can't wait for Asa to try it. A heavy, sympathetic silence fills the small car. Dara and Hana quietly step out into the neon glow to grab supplies. Yuru sits alone in the dim light of the cabin, the 2 colossal Daemons of the mountain standing their silent guard above him. The twins' paths have completely diverged. Yuru sits in the vibrant safety of the world below, while Asa remains miles away, trapped in a rainy, eternal loop with her wounded squad.
Yuru's first glimpse of the modern world is the neon glow of a highway service area. It is a loud, bustling world that shares nothing with the quiet isolation of his mountain village. Inside a booth, his protector, Hana, stares blankly at the ceiling. She's exhausted, functionally homeless, and suddenly responsible for a teenager she barely knows. Dara doesn't share her panic. He's too busy eating. But even he admits they have a problem. Both his name and face were compromised during the village raid, meaning he has to abandon his old life entirely to stay ahead of their attackers. His solution is a tactical sham, to create a believable social cover and move through populated towns without suspicion. He tells Hana they need to get married. Hana's exhaustion turns to rage. Dara presents brass knuckles as their new wedding rings. It's a pragmatic move. A May-December romance is the perfect cover to rent a home, avoid neighborly suspicion, and get lost in the crowd as a normal family. Hana isn't convinced. She aggressively rejects the whole plan, shouting that she had her heart set on marrying Jason Statham. The bickering is comedic, but the stakes are not. To survive the next few days, they must erase their actual identities and build a fake life from the ground up. Outside the diner, the noise of the highway fades. Yuru sits alone in the dark parking lot, looking up at the 2 massive Daemons perched on the roof of Hana's car. The deities initially ask for formal honorifics, but Yuru decides to keep things casual. He names the 2 giants left and right. The mood shifts instantly. Yuru looks up with a hardened expression and demands the truth about what happened to his twin sister, Asa. Left and right spent 4 centuries guarding the village entrance, watching every person who entered or left. They tell Yuru they never saw a second child in the village and assumed his twin had died of an illness shortly after birth. But 10 years ago, they witnessed something they never mentioned. Under the cover of night, they saw Yuru's parents sneaking out of the village, carrying a tiny girl in a basket. Yuru stares at the pavement in silence. He grew up believing his parents had abandoned both him and his sister. Now he knows that when they fled, he was the only one they chose to leave behind. Yuru realizes that the girl claiming to be the real Asa is the only person who knows where his parents went. To find the mother and father who abandoned him, he has to track down the sister they chose to save. Hana walks out of the diner and announces she is now Yuru's legal guardian. She immediately points to Dara, who is currently in a barking match with a stray dog, as proof of the trouble she'll have to manage.
As they pull back onto the highway, Dara warns Yuru about their destination. They are heading toward the Kagimoris, a branch family that was cast out of Higashi village centuries ago over ideological differences. The Kagimoris have spent generations building a massive network in the city. More importantly, rumors suggest they currently have Yuru's sister in their custody. The trail of Yuru's long family history leads directly into Kagimori territory. To find his parents, he'll have to navigate a city controlled by a family that was too dangerous for his own village to keep. In a high-rise city apartment miles away, we see the kind of influence the Kagimori network actually holds in the modern world. A woman named Ioi sprints down a hallway, desperately trying to escape a stalker with a kitchen knife. She dives into an elevator, but the man forces his way inside as the doors close. Pinned against the rail, Ioi's fear vanishes. She tells the man he is in her territory, and a pale, mouthless Daemon lunges out of the shadows to seize him. The floor of the elevator drops away into a void of teeth and grasping hands. A massive, needle-toothed maw opens up, dragging the screaming man down into the dark. While the demon feeds, a man in a suit casually walks up the stairs nearby. This is Jin Kagimori, and he's already on his phone confirming that the stalker problem has been settled. The Daemon ejects the bloody knife onto the floor with a wet thud. The doors open, revealing a terrified bystander in the lobby who has just watched a murder weapon materialize in an empty elevator. Jin steps into the lobby with a small fish daemon bobbing near his shoulder. He holds a finger to his lips, ensuring the witness stays silent. The Kagimoris operate in the gaps of the city, using monsters that normal people can't even see to keep order. Yuru is entering a world where the most dangerous threats are the ones hidden in plain sight.
The silver hatchback speeds down the dark highway, lit by the rhythmic flashes of passing neon. The mountain village is now a distant memory, replaced by the humming asphalt and a cramped cabin full of unspoken secrets. The man Yuru has known his entire life finally reveals a different identity. He is actually Ryu Tadera, part of a clan that has lived outside the village for generations, to serve as its eyes and ears in the modern world. Tadera describes his role as a mundane supply runner and liaison. His orders from Granny Yamaha were specific: maintain the village's total isolation and keep Yuru and his sister out of reach from anyone outside the clan. The Daemon right explains Yuru's birthright. Legend says Equinox twins born in an eastern village herald a fractured age. 4 centuries ago, the last fraternal twins triggered a great war, splitting the country into east and west using shadow-dwelling daemon wielders. Asa has claimed her legacy. This open hand illustrates Break, an ability that unravels objects and shatters mighty barriers. Yuru holds the other half, Seal, the power to forcibly close things. No one has controlled both, making their collision a complete mystery. Navigation is the only other defense. Dara explains the pesky directions required to pass through the village barrier, involving specific sequences like circling stone cairns and identifying landmark trees to find the hidden path. It was this secret path that brought Yuru's mother to the village. She was originally a hiker from the world down the mountain who accidentally chanced upon the landmarks and wandered through the barrier. The elders' lies and Dara's generations of secrecy reveal a quiet truth. For over a decade, Yuru's life was a carefully managed concealment, designed to keep the twins hidden from the forces waiting for them down the mountain. The Equinox lore ends abruptly at a city park restroom. Yuru jumps back as the modern toilet flushes with a loud mechanical roar. Yuru treats the bathroom like a battlefield. He displays a comedic pride in his work, celebrating the fact that he has flawlessly memorized the rules for automatic faucets and light switches. Outside the restroom, the scale of the lowlands is finally visible. Yuru stands before an ocean of glittering skyscrapers, a dense metropolis that houses millions of people he never knew existed. His daemons are equally shocked by the infrastructure. They struggle to understand clickety things that start fires, and buildings that house dozens of families rather than a single lord. Yuru acknowledges that Dara and Hana have been helpful, but his trust is limited.
Because they are connected to the villagers who kept his family's history a secret, he views them with a somber, calculating caution. He decides on a new primary mission.
Yuru intends to hunt down the girl claiming to be Asa and force her to reveal the truth about why their parents chose to flee the village years ago. Right welcomes the challenge, viewing the hunt as a long-awaited lark after 4 centuries of boredom. Left agrees, noting that she prefers the role of the hunter over being the one pursued. Yuru has no knowledge of modern technology, but he is a skilled tracker. He will apply his survival skills to the concrete forest. Dara tries to explain his flip phone to the group, but the concept is lost on them. He settles for calling it a high-tech smoke signal that can transmit voices over long distances. The group moves into a sprawling apartment complex. After weeks of traveling, they finally have a permanent base of operations where they are no longer forced to live out of a car. Yuru is stunned by the thick tatami mats in his new room. Back in the village, mats this high quality were luxuries reserved only for his sister or the most prestigious occasions. His arrival is interrupted by a sharp strike to the forehead. A tiger-striped cat and a Shiba dog sit nearby, immediately establishing their dominance over the new tenants. Hana introduces them as Kotetsu and Jiro. They are her personal divine guardian demons, living embodiments of the proverb, tiger at the front door, wolf at the back. To hide from their pursuers, they adopt new legal identities. They tape the name Dano over the apartment intercom, signaling that Yuru will now have to use Hana's family name to move through society. Yuru is deeply annoyed by the complexity of modern life. He is frustrated to learn that he cannot hunt or even drive a car without a stack of official permits and licenses. The lethal monsters of the village are now behind him, but they have been replaced by a landscape of complex regulations.
Yuru faces a world where his basic acts of survival now depend on the permits and paperwork of a society he barely understands. Hidden away from the bustling modern city, the Kagamori estate looks like a tranquil retreat, but inside the courtyard, Asa is struggling to control her kinetic abilities. A simple exercise to peel an apple goes wrong, releasing a massive shockwave that reduces a solid stone pedestal to flying shrapnel. The noise immediately draws out the head of the clan, Master Kagemori. Instead of scolding her, the master simply orders the mess cleaned up. On his command, a grotesque, multi-limbed fish daemon emerges from the shadows to swallow the heavy stone debris in a single gulp. This integration of the supernatural extends to the estate's private quarters, where an injured assassin named Gabi is recovering. To slice an apple for her, the stoic Jin Kagemori manifests a tiny pufferfish daemon that presents a gleaming steel kitchen knife straight from its mouth. Between the snacks and the video games, the master issues a strict tactical directive. Asa is to stay confined behind the estate's walls for her own protection. Meanwhile, Jin is tasked with hunting down Asa's missing twin brother, Yuru. The relaxed domesticity of the Kagemori compound masks a heavily fortified reality. The clan is backed by powerful daemon wielders who treat nightmarish monsters as ordinary tools, and they are now mobilizing for a lethal manhunt. To find Yuru, Jin needs a visual starting point. Asa provides an elegant, hyper-realistic portrait of her brother's face, while Gabi aggressively scribbles out a crude, bug-eyed stick figure as a joke. Jin's attention immediately locks onto a third sketch Asa has drawn, a highly detailed portrait of a rugged man named Dara. Tracking an adult operative offers a much more concrete lead than searching for an unknown teenager. Before Jin leaves, Asa delivers a warning about her brother's protectors. They possess a primal radar that can identify and track specific individuals by the exact scent of their blood. Jin absorbs the information and heads out with the sketches in hand. He now knows exactly how Yuru's daemons perceive their surroundings, providing him the means to turn their own biology into a vulnerability. Across the city, in a cramped apartment, Dara is taking his own precautions. To evade detection, he shaved his wild hair and scruffy beard, leaving a baby-smooth face. His wife, Hana, is in despair. She wails that Dara has destroyed any resemblance he had to action star Jason Statham, declaring him practically worthless to her now. The domestic squabble halts when Dara checks the entryway and asks where their son went.
Hana mentions Yuru stepped out to explore the neighborhood alone. Dara begins digging through the basket by the door, and his face pales. He realizes his heavy, combat-ready billhook is missing. Yuru has taken a massive, illegal bladed weapon out into the city. Dara and Hana are spiraling over the legal fallout of a teenager carrying a billhook, unaware that Yuru is walking directly into the center of a specialized, high-stakes manhunt. Miles away, Yuru stands on a high overpass, overlooking the glittering neon city skyline. Beside him, entirely invisible to the traffic below, tower his massive demons, left and right. Yuru quickly outlines a tracking strategy. To find his sister, they must scan the city for locations where multiple demons overlap with a blood signature identical to his own. Left and right destabilize into colossal ethereal shadows. They wind through the city's infrastructure, blanketing the urban grid to search for their target. Minutes later, the spectral beasts snap back to Yuru's side. Right exposes his jagged teeth in a terrifying grin. He has locked onto a cluster of demons and the exact scent of Asa's blood. The scale of the city means nothing against this primal tracking system. In minutes, Yuru's daemons have neutralized the noise of the metropolis, transforming him into an apex predator closing in on his prey. Following that invisible trail, Yuru and his daemons descend into the dim depths of an underground parking garage. Waiting at the far end is Jin Kagemori and a squad of suited men. From the shadows behind Jin, a woman steps forward. She is the spitting image of the twin sister Yuru has been searching for. Yuru prepares to close the distance, but Right suddenly inhales sharply. The daemon's eyes widen in alarm as he realizes a horrifying discrepancy. The scent pulling them here is not a living person, but old, congealed blood. Before Yuru can halt his charge, the illusion of Asa violently collapses. Out of the shadows bursts the scavenger daemon, lunging forward with its massive jaws and needle teeth. Yuru jams his billhook between the monster's jaws, holding it at bay. Meanwhile, an unfazed Jin holds up a test tube of Asa's blood, deliberate bait to weaponize the daemon's tracking and confirm the boy's identity. Calculated human intelligence has successfully hijacked Yuru's primal instincts. The hunter has been led by his own nose. We start far away from the tension of an underground battlefield. In the bright, quiet Dano apartment, the surroundings are peaceful, but the residents are in a state of total panic. Hana and Dara are terrified that Yuru, a boy who has lived his entire life on a secluded mountain, is wandering through a modern city with no idea how the world actually works. Their dread is financial. Yuru has zero health insurance. If he gets injured, Hana and Dara are legally responsible for all his medical bills. Desperate to avoid debt, Hana presents Yuru's tunic to her dog demon, Jiro, to track his scent. We see the intersection of ancient magic and modern tools as the cat demon, Kotetsu, expertly swipes through a GPS tracking app on a smartphone. Having lived with humans for generations, these familiars have fully adapted to digital life. The map reveals a grim reality. Jiro has tracked the scent all the way to Tokyo. Dara realizes that Yuru didn't just wander off. He traveled hundreds of miles to find a fight. This anxiety over medical bills highlights Yuru's extreme vulnerability. Without money or an identity, his solo excursion into Tokyo puts him in a position where any mistake could be life-altering. In the dim, concrete confines of a Tokyo parking garage, the atmosphere shifts. This is where Jin Kagemori has finally cornered his target. Jin explains that he laid this trap to intercept Yuru before the Higashi village elders, who want control of the twins, could strike. Now Yuru is physically caged inside the massive skeletal teeth of the scavenger demon. The shadows behind his men ripple as left and right, Yuru's towering daemons, silently materialize. Ignoring the bodyguard's orders, the daemons saunter forward with heavy footsteps, completely unconcerned that their master is a hostage. Day of the impending fight. By treating the enemy's trap as a convenient storage unit for their master, the demons strip Jin of his leverage. They aren't interested in traditional negotiation. They are looking for a clear battlefield. Jin responds by escalating the violence. His pufferfish demon vomits out a massive arsenal of modern weaponry, including assault rifles and heavy shotguns. The Kagemori men catch the weapons and unleash a relentless barrage of gunfire, lighting up the dark garage with muzzle flashes and high-caliber rounds. When the smoke clears, the demons are unharmed. The bullets just flattened against their skin. Left reveals their bodies are composed of solid stone. A point-blank shotgun blast to Right's face leaves him completely unharmed. Right lunges, crushing the steel barrel like paper, mocking the attackers and their useless toys. Left blocks a heavy steel crowbar with her bare arm, then launches a bodyguard into a concrete pillar with a single kick. Even Jin's katana fails. When he strikes, the steel blade snaps in half against Right's chest, leaving him holding a vibrating hilt. Modern firearms and tempered steel are useless against these entities. The Kagemori men must move beyond technology and use their supernatural abilities. Despite the failure of their guns, the Kagemori faction remains confident. The bodyguard, Akio, steps forward with a grin and summons his own Daemons. A giant tortoise shell suddenly manifests above Left. It drops with a massive force, generating gravity rings that crush her into the floor and shatter the concrete beneath her. At the same moment, a tiny rabbit daemon wearing prayer beads appears in front of Right. The small creature flashes a cheeky grin at the towering giant. The rabbit launches a hyperspeed assault. Every punch and kick strikes with the force of a cannonball, overwhelming Right and forcing him off his feet. He crashes onto the pavement, completely unable to counter the rabbit's speed, desperately calling out to Left for help. Left is in no position to assist. She's pinned to the floor, her knees buckling under the impossible weight of the tortoise daemon. The sheer pressure is visible in the floor itself, completely spiderwebbed and collapsing under the force. The defeat of these stone daemons by a rabbit and a tortoise proves that physical durability has its limits. In this war, raw strength is secondary to the ability to manipulate mass and velocity. Deep within the claustrophobic confines of a subterranean parking garage, Yuru finds himself physically trapped inside the mouth of a massive fish daemon, while his counterpart, Left, is completely pinned to the floor by a glowing tortoise shell. Yet, despite the crushing weight bearing down on her, Left exhibits zero panic. Instead, she wears a calm, knowing smirk and offers Yuru a simple two-word instruction: help yourself. Yuru immediately catches the drift. He tightens his grip on his heavy billhook and loudly plays the part of the doomed victim, screaming out a desperate, terrified plea to sell the illusion of defeat to their captors. The panic is entirely fabricated. In a sudden blur of motion, Yuru thrusts his blade out through the gaps in the monster's teeth, using the blunt steel handle to strike the glowing tortoiseshell on Left's back with a resounding thud. The physical impact causes the heavy shell to violently shudder. For a fraction of a second, its crushing, localized gravity falters. That microscopic window is all they require. This flawless, unspoken synchronization between a master and his daemon turns a seemingly perfect, coordinated trap directly into the Kagemori clan's undoing. Left capitalizes instantly. Surging upward with raw divine strength, she hurls the massive shell away and snaps her leg out, launching the enemy's hyperspeed rabbit daemon entirely across the concrete floor. Without needing a single command, Yuru anticipates her next move. He ducks low inside his fleshy prison, giving Left a clear path to deliver a devastating concussive kick directly into the fish monster's face. The sheer physical force behind the strike is overwhelming. The beast's supposedly impenetrable needle teeth completely shatter under the impact, raining jagged splinters across the garage. Lowering her leg, Left surveys the ruined cage, completely unimpressed. She casually notes that she expected the teeth to be harder. By unleashing their divine physical power without restraint, Left and Yuru instantly dismantle the Kagemori's complex, carefully coordinated containment strategy. With the cage obliterated, Yuru bursts from the beast's maw. He sprints at a dead run straight toward the Kagemori leader, Jin, fluidly ducking under a steel spike hurled by a bodyguard without losing a single step. Standing amidst the scattered teeth, Left calls out a sharp, seemingly nonsensical command to her towering counterpart, Right, asking what he does when he leaves the latrine. Grinning wildly, Right understands the code. He raises his massive fists, crackling with raw energy, and slams them together with a thunderous roar. A massive shockwave ripples across the concrete ceiling, instantly shattering every single fluorescent bulb. A cascade of sparks rains down, and pure panic grips the Kagemori men as they are plunged into blinding, suffocating darkness. Standing perfectly still in the pitch-black void, Jin experiences a paralyzing realization. He has become the prey in a hunting ground, exactly as Asa's warning predicted when she spoke of her brother's die-hard hunter mentality. Moving silently through the shadows, Yuru strikes. He sweeps his leg low, taking Jin's feet entirely out from under him and dropping the suited leader hard onto the concrete. By stripping away the environmental visibility, Yuru entirely flips the power dynamic. The bodyguard's modern weapons and numerical advantage are rendered utterly useless against a boy born and bred for the mountain hunt. When a military-grade flashlight finally cuts through the blackness, the Kagemori men freeze in shock. The beam perfectly illuminates Yuru standing directly over Jin, the heavy blade of his billhook pressed firmly against the leader's throat. Before the bodyguards can even twitch, left and right materialize directly behind them. The Kagemori men are bewildered, assuming the Daemons had abandoned their master to flee. Right quickly corrects them, laying out their terrifying core philosophy. Because Yuru is the twin of night, he is perfectly capable of hunting independently in the dark. The Daemons trust his lethality completely and would only intervene if his prey somehow escaped. Ignoring the bodyguards, Yuru keeps his blade tight against Jin's collar. He demands to know if the Kagemori clan ordered the attack on his village and orders Jin to use the smartphone in his pocket to summon Asa to the garage immediately. Yuru's bond with his Daemons creates a tactical fluidity that the Kagemori's reliance on numbers and traditional firepower cannot match. By allowing his entities the autonomy to act on their own terms, Yuru overcomes a rigid enemy command structure. Looking down at the dark blood pooling from Jin's calf, Yuru admits he intentionally cut shallow. Sensing no fatal bloodlust from Jin, he held back, a sentiment Jin coldly respects, admitting he would have reacted in kind to lethal intent. The tension shifts again when Wright steps forward. He points out the tortoise, the hare, and the fish, before turning to Harua and questioning why the final, unaccounted-for pair of Daemons hasn't been brought into the fight. Harua gestures toward the reinforced emergency doors at the far end of the garage, offering a terrifying answer. Those Daemons have been out this entire time. They simply cannot fit inside the room. Pressed tight against the small, rectangular window of the thick safety glass is a single, gigantic, unblinking reptilian eye, staring inward with a monstrous intelligence. Yuru rapidly calculates the odds.
He holds the leader at blade point, but fighting here means risking left and right against unseen, colossal horrors lurking just on the other side of that door. So Yuru makes a choice based on the surrounding threats. He steps back, sheathes his billhook to protect his companions, and accepts Jin's offer of a truce to enter the Kagemori compound as an honored guest. Yuru's decision to sheathe his blade secures a future for left and right. High above, the loyal Shiba Inu Daemon watches the clinic entrance, marking the end of the battle as the hunter begins his journey into the Kagemori compound. The underground parking garage is thick with the smell of exhaust and blood. To hide the evidence, Jin Kagemori leans on his metal crowbar while his massive fish-mouth demon, Scavenger, swallows the shattered katana and discarded firearms scattered across the floor. This cleanup is entirely routine. Jin uses his tiny pufferfish demon, Makoto, to store and produce weapons at his discretion, a tactical collection that allows him to clear mortal security with no one the wiser. Nearby, the ancient mountain deities assess the competition. Left and right size up Akio's giant tortoise demon, noting the weight of its shell and the crushing power radiating from its smoldering eyes. The tension breaks when a tiny hare demon mocks the giant deities. Wright immediately asks Yuru for hunting advice, casually suggesting the fluffy creature would make a good broth, while a horrified Akio waves his arms in protest. When a security guard arrives to check the broken lights, the group plays the role of startled bystanders. They effortlessly mask the supernatural destruction as a simple power surge, allowing their unseen journey to continue into the city.
Miles away, the secrecy of the transport ends for the Kagimori family. Asa snaps awake to a text message from Jin that reads, "I'm with your brother." Panic sets in instantly. Asa scrabbles across the mattress, frantically shaking Gabby awake while treating the impending arrival of her estranged twin like the stress of a high-stakes date. The second message settles the matter. We're headed there now. Asa's pulse hammers against her ribs. Her time to prepare has vanished. Asa shoves the phone into Gabby's face, her anxiety manifesting as a hyperventilating squeak. For the Kagimori, this is a successful acquisition, but for Asa, it is the raw, inevitable collision she has been dreading. Speeding through a highway tunnel, Jin reports his success to the compound. He has Yuru in the back seat, physically secured and moving toward the center of the faction's power. Master Kagimori receives the news from a muddy hot spring. Triumphantly standing atop a massive, lifeless beast, he jovially commands that the boy be treated with respect, his warm tone masking the weight of the moment. As the sedan enters the affluent streets of Tokyo, left and right sit on the roof. They scan the urban landscape with critical eyes, noting a suspicious lack of visible Daemons in the general public zone. Jin drives directly into the heart of Tokyo, a bold declaration of ownership that forces the Kagimori leadership to respond and prepare for the twins' arrival. The moment the car crosses the gate, the spiritual pressure suddenly explodes. The estate's invisible barrier zone reveals a hidden ecosystem where spectral eyes watch from the shadows and countless Daemons wait in the dark. Across the city, in a cramped apartment, a cat expertly scrolls through a smartphone screen. Dara and Hana stare at the GPS location of the estate, drained but tracking every move. Dara's plan is casual and confident. He pulls a gaudy floral shirt over his tank top and announces he will just catch a cab and walk into the enemy compound to retrieve their son. While the Kagimori rely on ancient spiritual fortifications, Dara treats the rescue like a simple social studies lesson, signaling that multiple forces are now converging on this single point. Jin parks in front of a majestic traditional entryway. The elegant wooden architecture and stone steps look completely out of place in modern Tokyo, marking the hidden heart of the Kagimori power. Asuma Kagimori steps out from the shadows. Dressed in traditional robes and carrying a glowing paper lantern, he greets the group with a serene, unreadable smile. Asuma misses nothing. He instantly spots the fresh blood on Jin's leg and sizes up the raw power of the mountain deities with profound, calculating curiosity. This polite reception is a display of absolute confidence. Asuma's smile is designed to psychologically disarm Yororu before the boy even crosses the threshold. That deceptive calm breaks when the heavy sliding doors clatter open. Footsteps pound against the wooden planks as someone rushes toward the courtyard. Asa stops dead at the top of the stairs. Her chest heaves, her single visible eye wide with overwhelming emotion as she finally sees her brother. At the bottom of the steps, Yororu freezes. His breath catches in his throat as his eyes lock onto hers, burning with a storm of fury and betrayal. The web of factions and the weight of the Kagimori compound vanish in this moment. The entire escalating conflict has now boiled down to the volatile collision of two siblings finally standing face to face.
At the bottom of the grand stone steps of the Kagimori estate, time has essentially frozen for Yuru. He expects to find the fragile shrine maiden he left behind in a mountain cell. Instead, he's staring up at a tall, modern woman rushing out to meet him. Asa is desperate for a connection. She reaches out, overwhelmed with relief, asking for a simple hug. But Yuru instantly bristles. He crosses his arms, leans back, and fiercely rejects the physical contact. Yuru makes his boundaries extremely clear. He's not here for a buddy-buddy family reunion. He is here for answers. Asa straightens up and strikes a deal. She will answer anything, provided she gets a hug afterward. This intensely awkward standoff is interrupted by the arrival of Asuma and Jin Kagimori. But Asa's attention quickly drops from her brother to Jin's leg, where dark blood is actively soaking through his suit trousers. The injury forces the entire group inside. Finding his sister hasn't allowed Yuru to drop his guard. His survival instincts are still screaming, treating the Kagimori estate like a hostile environment rather than a safe haven.
Deep inside the traditional wooden architecture of the estate sits a brightly lit, sterile, modern medical clinic. Looking at this photograph, you see a billhook, a curved agricultural tool used for brush. The doctor is utterly baffled a teenager attacked Jin with one. But for Yuru and Asa, growing up in a mountain environment means carrying a billhook is entirely normal. Jin sits up and casually hands the doctor a small glass vial filled with Asa's blood. Yuru immediately recoils in superstitious horror. To a mountain hunter, draining the lifeblood of a girl is the work of a demon. Asa explains the basics of modern medical science. She details how skilled hands can draw blood with a needle without severing a single vessel, a concept so alien it leaves Yuru's colossal demons left and right completely bewildered. Asa tries to leverage her comfort in this modern world to win her brother over. She points out how well the Kagemoris feed her, cheerfully opens her arms, and asks if they can hug now. Yuru vehemently shouts his denial once again. The comedic banter masks a deeper problem. The twins operate on entirely different frameworks of reality, making mutual trust a struggle. The comedy instantly evaporates. Yuru steps forward, his eyes burning with a desperate intensity, and demands to know where their mother and father are. Asa looks down. She delivers the solemn confession that their parents aren't here. They are officially missing, and she has no idea where they are. This sprawling Tokyo skyline highlights the sheer scale of the journey Jin maps out. He explains that after fleeing the village, the parents lived under Kagemori protection for a time, before deciding to travel from Tokyo all the way south to Okinawa. Asa translates the concept of airplanes for her brother, describing them as massive, sealed dragons carrying hundreds of people. Then she reveals an impossible paradox. They boarded in Tokyo, but when the plane landed, they were gone, vanishing from a sealed environment mid-flight. Yuru immediately points an accusatory finger at Jin. He deduces that the trusted daemon wielder the Kagemoris assigned to guard them must have been a spy from their home village, making this disaster a direct failure of Jin's organization. But Asa abruptly steps between them, shielding Jin from her brother's wrath. While Yuru sees a botched guard detail, Asa remembers the Kagemori saving her from relentless assassins. Her faith in them is unbreakable. The mystery of the sealed airplane weaponizes the twins' 10-year separation. It pits Yuru's survivalist paranoia directly against Asa's lived trauma and unwavering loyalty. Far above the family debate, clinging to the shadowy rooftops, distorted voices begin to whisper. The unseen assassins quickly run through a tactical assessment of their targets. They note the master of the house is out. Jin's movement is hindered by his leg injury, and crucially, Asa's spiritual power is drastically weaker since the sun is set. They lay out their gruesome objectives with total clarity. They do not care if the boy dies in the crossfire. But as for the girl, they specifically require what's above the neck. While the twins are busy arguing over who to trust, the Kagemori estate's outer perimeter has already been fatally compromised. Down in the clinic, Left suddenly flinches. Sensing a massive, plunging spiritual pressure from above, she instantly throws herself between her master and the windows. Two colossal, grotesque daemons plummet from the roof. Their bodies are pale, distorted masses, topped with gigantic yin-yang spheres that bear terrifying, manic grins. The beasts completely obliterate the sliding glass doors, sending splinters and shards flying in every direction. Left and right meet them head-on, throwing devastating punches and roaring into the resulting absolute chaos. Simultaneously, the scene abruptly shifts deep into the private quarters of the estate. Gabby is fast asleep until her dark, multi-eyed tooth daemon violently snaps its jaws at the empty air to wake her. She groggily rubs her eyes, annoyed by the interruption. In her open doorway stand two nightmarish intruders, a stitched-together scarecrow woman and a pale humanoid with a terrifyingly wide, needle-filled smile. But Gabby doesn't scream. Entirely fearless, she sits up in bed, flashing a bright, wicked grin right back at the monsters. The brief, awkward window for family reconciliation has been violently slammed shut. With two simultaneous, high-impact daemon attacks underway, a desperate, multi-front war for survival against the shadows of the East has officially begun.
The Kagemori estate is under a high-speed assault. Yuru, Asa, and the guards sprint down the grand corridor, fleeing two massive grinning daemons that are tearing up the floorboards right behind them. Asa notices something the others don't. These aren't the manor's daemons, they're outsiders, and for a girl searching for her vanished parents, they represent a potential lead. The Kagemori daemons, left and right, pull up alongside their master. Left asks for permission to obliterate the threat, but Jin shuts her down. He doesn't want dead monsters, he wants the person pulling their strings. Survival is only half the mission. The team is already pivoting to capture the NA wielder and expose the larger assassination plot. Yuru asks, what happens if they kill the master? Akio explains the grim reality. Break the contract, and the daemons become strays, tethered to their location like ghosts. Jin adds, without a new contractor to sustain them, they slowly fade out of existence. For a boy who views daemons as steadfast companions, the idea of condemning them to a slow purgatory is unacceptable. Yuru makes a sudden, empathetic choice. He'll spare the enemy wielders to keep the daemons from fading away. Akio is horrified to realize the boy was ready to kill the attackers outright before learning this rule. Asa, however, beams with pure sibling adoration. This rule changes how the Kagemori have to fight. They must balance a lethal defense with the need to keep their targets alive. To level the playing field, a tiny pufferfish daemon violently expels a metallic arsenal of modern weaponry right onto the floorboards. Yuru grabs a bow, but he's completely baffled. The complex pulleys and synthetic strings of modern compound weaponry look like alien technology to a mountain hunter. He knocks a carbon arrow anyway, but the unfamiliar tension throws off his aim. The arrow whizzes harmlessly past the giant yin-yang beast. Raw hunting instinct hits a wall when the equipment is this complex. The sudden arrival of modern tactical gear leaves the defenders struggling to keep up. Amidst the hallway chaos, Jin pulls out his smartphone, calmly checking on the estate's private quarters. Deep in the manor, Gabby is perfectly relaxed in her pajamas. Her multi-eyed toothed daemon, Gabriel, has trapped a horse-faced intruder in its jaws. She treats the ambush with casual boredom, resting her chin on her hand while the partner tries to rip him free. The Kagemori family doesn't need to break a sweat to handle an ambush. They are built for this level of violence. Gabby mocks the pair, calling it cruel to let one half of the team suffer alone. Gabriel's jaws expand and snap shut, engulfing the second attacker in a single shadowy bite. Gabby strolls onto the balcony, finding the rooftops swarming with dozens of small, black blob daemons. She smiles, pointing them out as Gabriel's midnight snacks. Gabby's lack of fear confirms the hierarchy. In this manner, the Kagemori are the apex predators. Back in the corridor, Jin gets confirmation that the rest of the house is secure, allowing the team to focus their absolute lethal intent on the beasts in front of them. Before striking, Left and Right apologize for the structural damage they're about to cause. Jin accepts Left's apology, but tells the giant Right to take his own scolding. Left crouches low, asking Yuru to distract the white daemon for her offensive. Even with the constant bickering, the Kagemori defenders move with a synchronization that suggests years of shared combat experience. Yuru abandons the high-tech sights and relies on raw instinct, firing an arrow straight down the hall to pull the daemon's attention. The second the arrow flies, Left surges forward. She grabs Right by his massive belt and hurls the giant man like a human cannonball directly into the black daemon's path. The moment Right intercepts the beast, the corridor erupts in a blinding flash of supernatural light. When the smoke clears, the hallway is dead quiet. The daemon, Yuru, and Asa are gone. The Kagemori prepared for a physical brawl, but the enemy was playing a different game. The battle was merely a distraction for a targeted abduction. Jin's analytical mask shatters. He drops to his knees in a screaming panic, searching through the wreckage for the vanished twins. Akio reacts with pure aggression, summoning a colossal tortoise daemon with enough gravitational power to crush the room. With a deafening slam, the tortoise pins the remaining white daemon into the floorboards. Akio marches forward, demanding to know what it did with his friends. He pins the daemon to force a confession, hoping to learn what happened to Asa's parents. Dust settles over the shattered wooden beams of the Kagemori corridor. The colossal yin-yang demons have vanished, taking Yuru and Asa with them. Left in the ruined courtyard, Jin Kagemori immediately dictates the rules of engagement. He orders Akio to lock down the area with his giant tortoise demon,
but issues a strict tactical limitation. They must capture the enemy demons and their master alive. The Kagemori defenses are critically understaffed. Their heavy hitters are off-site, and the clinic doctor's demon is entirely unconscious after pulling an all-nighter to meet a deadline. Operating with a skeletal crew, Jin smoothly adapts. He draws his modern handgun, adjusts his glasses, and summons Ai and Makoto, his tiny, obedient pufferfish demons. Jin expertly stabilizes the physical courtyard under the moonlight, yet his tactical brilliance means nothing for the twins, whose actual fight for survival is playing out in a dimension he cannot touch. Cut off from the physical world, Asa sprints through an endless, suffocating expanse of pitch-black nothingness. There is no floor, no sound, no exit. The total isolation breaks her. She drops to her knees, trembling as a deep-seated, paralyzing fear of the dark takes over. Suddenly, a massive silhouette materializes directly behind her. Asa screams in pure terror as the imposing, shark-toothed giant reveals himself. Wright leans down, taking a heavy sniff of the cold air. Instead of attacking, he marvels at the absolute gloom, reaching out blindly to pat Asa on the head and calm her panic. The casual comfort evaporates instantly. Wright reminds Asa of their unprovoked scuffle back in the village, flatly declaring himself her natural enemy. They pause to argue semantics in the dark. Wright tries to recall how she 86'd his power, while Asa politely suggests the word cancel. He explains that as a divine guardian, his biological imperative is to stop powers like hers from running wild. Asa faces a brutal paradox. She must ally with the entity forged to neutralize her existence. Miles away, Yuru stands in the exact opposite environment, an endless, shadowless room of blinding white. Left drops in from the invisible sky with a heavy thud. Scanning the geometric lattice around them, she deduces they are locked inside a spherical dimensional barrier created by the demon pair. While Asa panics in the dark, Yuru remains entirely unbothered. He casually checks his bow's string tension. Yuru uses Left's blade as a target, but his arrow strikes her square in the forehead. Yuru drops his jaw in horror. Left casually explains that as a stone creature, taking the hit is more efficient than dodging. Left asks why he isn't frantically searching for his sister. Yuru just smirks. He knows Asa wields the ultimate dimensional power of break, making any magical trap completely irrelevant. The psychological prison entirely misfires on Yuru. His grounded hunter instincts and absolute trust in Asa's abilities strip the white void of its intended terror. Back in the physical courtyard, Akio's massive tortoise daemon pins the struggling white sphere to the dirt, crushing it under intense gravitational force. A few yards away, the surface of the black daemon bulges outward and violently ruptures. Wright hits the ground with a heavy thud, carrying Asa effortlessly out of the void. Asa lands gracefully on top of the deflated black beast. Her solitary eye burns with cold, absolute authority. She raises an open palm and violently thrusts it downward. A raw kinetic pulse strikes the beast, instantly snapping the invisible, spiritual tether, binding the daemon to its hidden assassin. Asa breaks out of the ambush and instantly strips the enemy of a colossal asset. Watching from the sidelines, Dr. Sakawazawa tosses a glass test tube cleanly through the night air. It contains a sample of Asa's stored, congealed blood. Asa catches the vial and methodically drops the old blood onto the surface of the defeated beast to initiate a forced master swap. The old blood sizzles with ethereal light. The terrifying giant face looks up, its manic grin softening as it begins to purr and affectionately rub against Asa's leg. The tender moment lasts a microsecond. Asa grabs the beast's fleshy side and screams, demanding to know if it swallowed Yuru. The daemon cheerfully gives a thumbs up and points directly at its white counterpart. Asa presses her hand to the black sphere one last time. Her visible eye narrows as she issues a final, uncompromising order. Tell her exactly where the old master is hiding. Akio and the doctor stare in complete shock. A teenager was ambushed, trapped in a magical void, and returned 60 seconds later with a newly weaponized pet. Asa overrides the assassination attempt. By claiming the attacker's daemon, she secures her survival and immediately targets the person who ordered the strike. Deep inside the Kagemori Manor, the dust is finally settling over a completely shattered corridor. The ambush has torn the traditional architecture to splinters. The massive white yin-yang daemon convulses and suddenly spits out its cargo. Yuru and Asa slide onto the floorboards, entirely unharmed by the chaos. But Left doesn't wait to ask questions. Operating purely on a warrior's instinct, she raises Yuru's heavy steel billhook, fully intending to execute the newly unrolled black beast on the spot. Asa screams for her to stop, waving her hands frantically. In that split second, the pieces click together for Yuru. The master controlling these specific daemons holds the exact information they need to locate their missing parents. Having switched sides without a second thought, the black daemon cheerfully points a stubby arm straight down the pitch-black hallway, exposing its former master shivering in the shadows. The hidden assassin tries to retreat, but Asa thrusts her hand forward, sending a concussive wave of kinetic energy ripping through the wooden beams and blowing the sliding doors off their tracks. Before the man can take another step, an arrow sings through the air. Yuru flawlessly pins the mercenary's shirt to the heavy wooden doorframe, trapping him entirely. Capturing this target pivots the night's momentum. Yuru and Asa now hold a live lead, transforming their desperate defense into a targeted hunt for the truth about their family. The counterattack pushes outward into the adjacent corridors. Jin Kagemori strides through the wreckage, adjusting his glasses and taking methodical control over the cleanup. He politely instructs the surviving servants to hide. Then he summons a horrifying needle-toothed scavenger daemon to literally chew through the manor's foundation, flushing out anyone hiding beneath the floorboards. A masked assassin attempts to strike from below. Jin casually puts a bullet right between the man's eyes, and the massive scavenger swallows the falling corpse whole with a sickening crunch. Stepping out into the moonlit courtyard, Jin finds Gabi standing in her pajamas. She boasts about wiping out 8 enemy pairs entirely on her own, dismissing them as weak. Jin corners a frantic, bleeding attacker in a tracksuit. He pins the screaming man to the dirt, only to realize the high-tech arrow buried in the mercenary's shoulder didn't come from anyone on the ground. The invading mercenaries walked in expecting a coordinated ambush, but the Kagemori defenders are routing them, treating elite killers like an everyday pest control problem. That high-tech arrow came from the rooftops. Yuru leaps silently across the sloping traditional tiles, serving as an unseen, lethal sniper watching over the Kagemori forces below. Miles away at the estate's outer wall, an elite swordsman watches Yuru bound across the roofline. He quickly calculates his odds of surviving a direct confrontation and decides to completely abandon his mission. Closer to the ground, a bearded mercenary panics. Cursing his employers, he abandons his squad and sprints toward the open outer gates. But the darkness between those gates violently ripples. A colossal reptilian eye materializes in the gap, staring the mercenary down and blocking his only avenue of escape. The Kagemori counteroffensive has effectively sealed the estate. With every exit watched by a massive daemon, the invaders' attempts to retreat only drive them deeper into the snare. Hours pass, and the violence of the night is way to daylight. Small birds sing in the trees, creating a jarring contrast with the pulverized walls and cratered gardens of the Kagemori estate. A heavily bandaged Jin limps onto the veranda and thanks Yuru for his help. Yuru glares back. He makes it crystal clear that he didn't fight to protect them. He fought solely to track down his parents. Gabi stomps over, jabbing an accusing finger at Yuru's face. The 2 teenagers instantly fly at each other with bared teeth, forcing Asa and Left to physically hold them back. Back out in the main courtyard, Haruo stands watch. Dozens of beaten, exhausted mercenaries sit in a long line on the gravel, zip-tied and waiting for their fate. Haruo begins the interrogation with the muscular assassin Yuru pinned to the doorframe earlier. The captive pleads ignorance, swearing he only took the job for the massive bounty on the twins. Akio smiles. A dark, ruthless sparkle hits his eye. He decides the situation calls for extreme physical pressure to loosen the mercenary's tongue. With a deafening thud, the colossal tortoise demon drops out of the sky, landing directly on the captive's back and pinning him to the stones with bone-crushing gravity. The defensive battle is over. Now, the Kagemori will extract every piece of information they can from the survivors, kicking off a violent hunt for the true architects behind the attack. Morning light filters through the mist over the Kagemori estate, revealing a courtyard transformed into a graveyard of jagged stone and debris. In the center of the ruin, the interrogation continues. Torty, the colossal tortoise demon, pins a muscular assassin into the gravel, using its unfathomable weight to crush any remaining resistance. The man breaks instantly. He claims to be a simple part-timer, a mercenary hired on short notice who barely knew his own teammates. His only lead is a handler in a camo jacket, the man he claims was calling the shots. Jin Kagemori remains unmoved by the plea. As this panel reveals, the lead is already a dead end. The man in the camo jacket is currently lying lifeless outside the estate gate. Jin shifts his focus to the missing Kagemori parents. He grills the bound captives about the flight to Okinawa, the last place the twins' mother and father were seen before they vanished entirely. The response is a chorus of silence and desperate headshaking. These men were hired for a single job. They possess no knowledge of the family's history or the parents' current whereabouts. With no information left to squeeze from the survivors, the search for the parents hits a wall, leaving Yuru and Asa to find another path forward. Asa breaks the tension with a question the assassins clearly didn't expect. She walks directly to the bald wielder of the yin-yang spears and asks for their names. The assassin's response is revealing. He views Daemons as livestock, beings that must be beaten into submission to establish who is boss. To him, giving a daemon a name is a sign of weakness. This arrogance is met with an immediate, visceral response from the Kagemori bodyguards. Gabi steps forward, her presence signaling that the conversation is about to take a darker turn. Gabi's multi-eyed tooth daemon materializes instantly. As this panel shows, its massive jaws snap shut mere inches from the captive's ear, a silent promise of what happens to those who disrespect the entities they serve. Even the smaller demons express their disgust. Akio's rabbit demon crosses its arms in a huff, reminding the terrified man that these beings possess their own feelings and dignity. The mercenaries were defeated by the very things they sought to control. By treating their partners as disposable tools, they guaranteed their demons would abandon them the moment a better master appeared. Asa's approach is the polar opposite. The massive, stitched spheres nuzzle her face like oversized puppies, thriving under her care. When she asks them to become smaller, they respond instantly. With a soft pop, they transform into tiny, adorable blobs bouncing at her feet. The battle-hardened Asa disappears, replaced by a girl genuinely charmed by her new companions. The sphere's total obedience proves that cooperation yields a level of control that violence never could. For the twins, this empathy is a practical necessity for staying alive. As the adrenaline of the battle fades, the siblings find a moment of quiet on the veranda. Yuru looks at his sister, trying to reconcile the girl he knew with the warrior standing before him. He points tentatively toward the leather patch covering her right eye, asking if this was another wound delivered by the assassins who have been hunting her. Asa covers her face, exhaling a long, trembling breath. The mask of the hardened fighter slips as she decides that Yuru deserves the unfiltered truth about her past. She reveals a devastating fact. She has already died once, killed by an assassin from their own village. The revelation hits Yuru with the force of a physical blow. This close-up captures the moment he realizes the true, lethal stakes of the world they've been thrust into.
Asa's cynical, hardened perspective is a survival mechanism forged by the memory of her own execution. This shock triggers a primal memory from Yuru's childhood. He recalls a day in the mountains when a bandit's shadow loomed over him, the air thick with a murderous intent that sought to deny his very existence. A sudden wood echoes through the trees as his father's arrow finds its mark. The rescue is precise and lethal, saving the boy from a blade that was already descending. After checking Yuru for injuries, his father's relief turns into a grim lesson. He holds the dead bandit's blood-stained knife inches from his son's eyes, demanding that the boy never forget the sensation of that moment. He names the feeling bloodlust, a targeted malice that will haunt the twins for the rest of their lives. Survival in this world requires the ability to recognize this intent the moment it appears and meet it with absolute, unhesitating resolve.
Deep in the mountain forest, the violence of an ambush fades into heavy silence. Standing over the freshly slain body of a bandit, Mine grips his bow and pulls the hunting arrow free. He exhibits a cold, professional calmness. After wiping the blade clean, he turns towards his son, Yuru, who sits paralyzed and shivering in the dirt. Mine kneels and physically grounds the boy. He guides Yuru through a series of deep, rhythmic breaths, instructing him to use the exhale to expel the noise and panic from his mind. Mine is instilling a foundational survival tactic. On the mountain, panic is a liability. A calm, orderly mind is a hunter's primary defense against death. Later that night by the campfire, Mine reinforces his philosophy. He explains that a distracted mind creates the disorder that makes any creature vulnerable to a lethal strike. Yuru worries the bandits' crew might retaliate against their home, but Mine dismisses the concern. He insists the village faces no danger from the woods. He then issues a strict, uncompromising instruction. Yuru must hide the attack, mention the bandit to no one, and act as if nothing happened the moment they return home. Mine is teaching his son that the village is just another hunting ground, one where the predators wear familiar faces, and survival requires a permanent mask of normalcy. The next morning, Higashi Village offers a bright, welcoming facade. The sunshine and massive stone statues guarding the entrance stand in sharp contrast to the grim reality of the previous night. This peaceful atmosphere is immediately tested when the stern village elder intercepts them. She is suspicious, demanding to know why a hunter of Mine's skill would spend an entire night on the mountain with no spoils to show for it. Her sharp gaze locks onto a critical flaw in their cover. A dark smear of dried bandit blood is visible directly across the front of Yuru's tunic. Mine doesn't miss a beat. Maintaining a perfectly casual expression, he dismisses the stain as the blood of a rodent they killed for a meager supper. The hunter's philosophy works. By maintaining total composure under intense scrutiny, Mine successfully manipulates the most powerful figure in the village. Deep inside the torch-lit corridors of the keep, Yuru reunites with his mother, Nagisa, and his sister, Asa. The girl is kept in isolation, locked behind the heavy beams of a wooden cage. Yuru executes his father's orders with precision. He throws his hands up with a bright smile, using a cheerful performance to assure his sister that nothing is wrong. While Yuru provides the distraction, Mine leans in close to his wife. He whispers the violent truth of the mountain directly into Nagisa's ear. Nagisa's widened eye betrays her horror, but she immediately suppresses the reaction. She forces a fragile smile, aware that the village guards are watching their every move. The family is now performing a role to survive. They are living in a hostage situation where their own home has been repurposed as a lethal prison. 10 years later, the truth finally surfaces. Sitting in a ruined garden in the present day, Yuru realizes that the life he knew was a fabrication sustained by the entire village. Soon after that hunt, his parents fled the village with the real Asa. Yuru was left behind, unknowingly raised alongside a fake sister, while the people of Higashi maintained the lie for a decade. The real Asa now sits beside him, confirming this history. She drops a final bombshell. At 15 years old, she was tracked down and killed by a Higashi village assassin. Mine's desperate cover story had eventually failed. The deception he built to protect his family only delayed a violent end, leaving his true daughter to face a murderer alone. As Asa was assassinated, her consciousness was pulled into a suffocating darkness. This void serves as a bridge between the living and the dead. She navigates a surreal landscape, a winding path of bleached human skulls leading toward a mountain-sized skull. Growing from its crown is an ancient tree with roots that burrow deep into the bone. Standing among thick roots is a towering, white-cloaked spectral figure, the Break Daemon, guarding the border of death. The deity recognizes her arrival, greeting her resurrected form with a chilling declaration. Lo, flesh hath come. Mine's attempt to outrun death resulted in a dark, supernatural pact.
To survive the village's reach, his daughter had to cross the threshold of mortality and return with a power that shatters the laws of nature.
One moment, 15-year-old Asa is standing in a sunlit garden. The next, her mind plunges into a suffocating, pitch-black void. The memory of a blade tearing through her flesh snaps into focus, and she realizes her life has just ended. Looming above her is a spectral, white-cloaked entity. Its ancient, divine voice cuts through the abyss to deliver a simple, heavy truth. She is dead. The entity pulls a heavy, ancient tome from a pile of rotting books tangled in the roots of a skull tree. It reads aloud, identifying this place as Yomotsu Hirasaka, the spiritual boundary existing squarely between the land of the living and the realm of the dead. Standing on a path of human skulls, Asa recalls a legend passed down in her village. It told of equinox twins crossing into the land of the dead to command Daemons. She realizes her father's stories weren't just myths. Looking at her hands, the truth of her situation becomes undeniable. Finding herself in this specific abyss means her murder was the exact event required to bring the village's ancient prophecy to life. The break demon presents a cold ultimatum. Asa can either step off the skull path and embrace permanent death, or she can bind herself to him to return to the living. Choosing to live grants her the power of break. The deity claims she could part the heads of enemy generals from their bodies just by looking at them, possessing a strength that could end wars single-handedly. But the bargain comes with a warning. She will be relentlessly hunted for this new power. Asa reflects on her short existence. Her parents were already taken, their fates completely unknown. In her mind, the hell the demon warns her about might have already begun long before she died. To survive, Asa must agree to become a living weapon. The cost of her resurrection isn't just the pain of her past, but the permanent surrender of a life without conflict. Her despair breaks the moment she thinks of her brother. She violently snaps her head up, screaming into the void to demand if Yuru has been killed as well. The break demon answers coolly. He confirms Yuru is not in this realm. If her brother had died, he would have been sent to the deity known as Seal. Asa's fists clench until her knuckles turn white. She realizes Yuru is still in the village, vulnerable and alone. Staring defiantly into the darkness, she rejects death, vowing she cannot succumb while her brother needs to be saved. The ultimate catalyst for her resurrection is not the deity's promise of power. It is the realization that her death would leave her twin to face the village's threats entirely on his own. The void shatters, returning to a blood-stained room. 3 assassins stand over Asa's slumped body, arguing in a panic. They conclude they can still capture Yuru, planning to turn him into an obedient seal wielder before killing him too. As they plot his death, the heavy ropes binding Asa's wrists violently snap. Her arms fly outward, freezing the assassins in horror. Asa lunges forward with resurrected fury, driving her fist into an assassin's face. As blood sprays the room, the multi-eyed form of a toothed daemon begins to materialize from the shadows beside her. This strike is a total rejection of the victim the assassins expected to find. By meeting her killers with immediate, lethal force, Asa has discarded the role of the helpless twin forever.
On, her path will be one of her own choosing. Staring forward with a dark, unyielding eye, she admits that this new life requires her to get her hands dirty. The blood on the floor is the first installment of the price she must pay for her return. She has traded her safety for a life where protecting her brother means being the one to hold the blade. By morning, the estate is tranquil. On the sunlit veranda, Jin Kagemori explains the brutal truth to Yuru. The pure, innocent version of his sister died in that room, and the girl sitting before him is someone entirely different. Manor servants methodically hose down the pathways, scrubbing away the thick bloodstains and daemon residue. The estate is being restored to its serene beauty, but the marks of the night's violence are not so easily erased. The quiet morning is suddenly interrupted by a cheerful voice calling out from the front gates, wondering why a rich family doesn't have guards posted at the entrance. A man in a gaudy floral shirt stands at the gate, grinning confidently. He locks eyes with the Kagemori guard and drops his carefree persona, announcing himself as Ryu of the Tadera, and he's here to collect Yuru. Asa successfully cheated death to save her brother, but her victory has only brought a new set of predators to her door. The forces of the underworld have already arrived to challenge her new, catastrophic power.
The night of chaos at the Kagemori estate gives way to a bright, quiet morning. The veranda is bathed in sunlight, contrasting the violent battles. But the peace doesn't last. Word arrives that a man from the Tadera clan is waiting outside. Yuru is instantly hit with a wave of guilt for completely forgetting his legal guardians. Instead of slipping away, Yuru makes a calculated move. He asks Jin to invite his guardian inside, deciding to force everyone's hidden agendas into the open. Jin agreed, but lays down one strict non-negotiable rule. There will be absolutely no killing this time. Back inside the ruined corridors, the absurdity of the Kagemori household begins to show. Asuma is found strolling peacefully through the splintered wood, elegantly and cheerfully admitting he slept through the entire raid. Moments later, Hagore comes pounding down the hall barefoot. His absolute horror at the shattered floorboards provides a heavy dose of comedic panic, entirely out of step with the prior night's lethal danger. Between Asuma's deep slumber and Hagure's late arrival, a clear picture emerges. The Kagemori residents might be charmingly eccentric, but they are completely unreliable. This sprawling estate is highly vulnerable. Hagure is thrilled to see Asa safe, though his relief is quickly derailed. He finds himself completely sandwiched between the towering, terrifyingly muscular forms of left and right, sweating profusely under their physical presence. Once he squeezes his way out, Hagure points out a grim logistical fact. The magical barrier failed to keep outsiders out. The perimeter is fully compromised, meaning they are all forced to sleep with one eye open. The tension temporarily shifts outside to the bright white gravel courtyard. A luxury car pulls up, delivering the stout Kagemori clan head, Gonzo. But he isn't alone. Popping up from behind the luxury vehicle is Dara, wearing a loud floral shirt and a massive grin, casually making his entrance. Gonzo is the picture of a booming and enthusiastic grandfatherly host. He enthusiastically shakes Yuru's hand and openly admires the raw physical power of the boy's daemons. Jin does not share this warmth. He glares at Dara with icy suspicion. The Tadera serve as Higashi village's notoriously cautious retainers. A secretive clan wouldn't stroll defenseless into enemy territory unless they had an angle. He is right to be suspicious. The moment Yuru questions his guardian, Dara's playful grin completely vanishes. His eyes lock onto the boy with severe intensity. In a single look, the comedic safety of the morning routine is shattered. Dara's calculated intrusion steers the narrative straight into a heavy, unavoidable confrontation regarding Yuru's deepest vulnerabilities. Dara cuts straight to the core issue. He reveals the rumor Asa shared with him. Yuru believes he can claim the power of break by dying. Dara glares at the boy. He warns Yuru that having a magical safety net makes him dangerously willing to throw his life away for his sister. The Daemons invoke a dark legend about the previous twins born 400 years ago. Right delivers the critical twist. Dying does not guarantee you'll come back to life. Left drops the final crushing blow. One of them did not revive. Yuru and Asa are paralyzed. The romanticized illusion of self-sacrifice is destroyed in seconds. The stakes are absolute, and death on this estate is a real, permanent threat. Sensing the suffocating weight of the moment, Gonzo violently claps his hands together. He breaks the tension, insisting they shift the conversation to breakfast. They walk deeper into the estate to the ruined Great Hall. Hagore looks at the massive damage, rolls up his sleeves, and volunteers to clean it up. He points a single finger at the massive pile of splintered beams. A small spectral blob demon with a glowing eye manifests right beside his shoulder. In a bizarre, physics-defying display, Hagure swipes his hand. A blinding streak of pure, blank white completely erases the physical debris from the floorboards. Dara and Yuru watch in sheer disbelief. The wreckage is perfectly erased, replaced by an empty white void exactly like correction fluid dragged over reality. Hagure happily waves his fingers like a painter. He sweeps the white void upward, cleanly erasing the jagged holes in the walls and the ruined shoji screens. The physical wreckage vanishes in strokes of white, but the grim history remains. The Kagemori sanctuary might look perfectly spotless, but it is entirely compromised.
After a catastrophic Daemon raid, you'd expect a massive cleanup effort. But here, a giant spectral blob daemon sweeps over the ruined Kagemori manor. In a flash, the shattered wooden pillars and walls are perfectly restored to pristine condition. The architect of this instant repair is the surprisingly cheerful Hagure. He introduces his daemon pair, black and white. Whiteout erases physical spots that need fixing, and ink redraws whatever is missing. To demonstrate, the daemons cheerfully spit their powers into the air. Asa immediately picks up on the mechanics here. Powers like this require high-level observation and a massive amount of imagination to use effectively, which makes them the perfect toolset for Hagure's specific line of work. To Dara's absolute shock, the chubby heir to the deadly Kagemori clan is a famous manga artist. He operates under the pen name Hagure because his family is deep into organized crime, avoiding getting doxxed for their shady activities. Hagure is effectively a professional creator of happy comics living in the epicenter of a clan built on shadows and violence. As the three Kajimori half-brothers stand side by side, the family tree gets even more bizarre. You have Hagure, the elegant Asuma, and the stone-cold killer Jin. There is zero family resemblance. The birth order makes even less sense. The easygoing artist is the eldest, while Jin, the deadly, bespectacled assassin, is actually the baby of the family. Dara and Yuru stare at them in total disbelief. Asuma offers a serene, teasing smile, casually advising Dara to start kissing up to Hagure now, because as the eldest, the manga artist is technically next in line to take over the entire Kajimori clan. Hagure immediately throws an absolute tantrum. He violently shakes his head, screaming that he wants nothing to do with running a crooked mob family. This chaotic sibling dynamic masks the danger of the room. Between the tantrum-throwing artist and the quiet assassin, the Kagemoris could send a dysfunctional family dinner that hides just how quickly this environment can turn lethal. The comedic tension is abruptly broken by the arrival of breakfast. Even this is unsettling, as massive demons wearing traditional straw raincoats step into the room, effortlessly hauling oversized floor cushions above their heads for the guests. This wide view of the hall shows everyone settling in to eat. Yuru is just thrilled to stuff his face with delicious rice. But directly across the table, the mood drops below freezing. Jin pushes his glasses up and drops a heavy accusation. He stares cold-bloodedly at Dara, demanding to know if his Higashi village faction was responsible for the demon raid on the manor last night. The timing of Yuru's arrival and the attack is just too convenient. Dara doesn't flinch. He takes a slow sip of his tea, maintaining his relaxed merchant persona, and casually deflects the accusation. The polite breakfast is officially over. This is a hostile negotiation. The Kagemoris are making it explicitly clear that they are actively hunting whoever is trying to strip their control over Yuru. Seeking to shift the pressure, Dara casually turns his attention to Asa. He asks if she's getting a raw deal living under Kagemori protection.
Ace's answer outlines a grim reality. Yes, they feed and educate her, but she is effectively a prisoner, only safe inside the manor walls. The moment she steps outside, she's relentlessly hunted by Higashi village assassins. Here, Asa reveals the severe physical toll of this lifestyle. The sheer, non-stop panic of surviving 24/7 assassination attempts literally ate holes into her stomach. She is a teenager suffering from severe stress ulcers. Sweating under the weight of her misery, Dara tries to pivot to logistics. He asks a highly practical question. Without proper insurance or a family registry, how on earth does she handle regular hospital visits? Asa explains she's not registered anywhere.
Her mother planned to add her to the registry, but someone attacked her parents and they vanished. Dara's chopsticks pause midair. His playful persona shatters into absolute shock. He had no idea their parents were missing. Asa exists in a state of total isolation. To the Kagimoris, she is a prize to be kept behind walls. To Higashi Village, she is a target to be eliminated. In both cases, she is a tool for their agendas, not a person to be protected. That revelation forces Dara's hand. He drops the Merchant Act entirely, locks his eyes directly onto clan head Gonzo, and demands to know what the Kagimoris ultimately want to do with the twins. Gonzo answers with ruthless finality. He believes the twins only bring chaos. To stop it, his goal is to simply let the bloodline terminate with Asa and Yuru, entirely wiping out Higashi Village in the process. But the Kagimori clan is entirely fractured. Without missing a beat, Asuma and Jin smoothly reject their own leader's plan. Serenely raising his hand, Asuma reveals their agenda. They view the twins' abilities as divine blessings. They intend to hoard that power so the Kagimori clan can peacefully govern the entire world. The twins are left with zero middle ground. They can either accept Gonzu's plan for their eventual extinction or surrender to the brothers' vision of absolute global control. Right in the middle of this massive debate, Yuru loudly snaps his chopsticks together. He thanks the cook, completely ignores the world domination agendas, and points an accusatory finger directly at his sister. He is furious. He demands to know who has conditioned Asa to constantly apologize for things she didn't do. Someone has made her feel an intense, crushing shame simply for existing. Yuru completely rejects the premise of the entire room. He refuses to accept that some ancient prophecy or village bloodline means his sister has to spend her life skulking in the shadows. Sitting tall, he looks directly at every faction leader at the table. He states firmly that he has no reason to sneak around. He is not going to run. He is not going to hide. A wild grin breaks across his face as he issues a final, open threat. Whoever wants his head can come and get it. He plans to beat back every single assassin they send and wring them dry for the truth. Yuru is finished being a pawn. By inviting every faction to attack him at once, he stops playing defense and forces his enemies to react to him for the first time. Yuru isn't interested in making it easy for his enemies. He's standing firm in the Kagimori manner, stating plainly he won't run or hide. If anyone wants his head, he'll be waiting. He intends to fight back and squeeze them for information. The declaration brings the room to a standstill. The Kagimori brothers and bodyguards sit in silence, seemingly unsure how to process a boy from the mountains inviting a shadow war to breakfast. Asa is the one to break it. She snaps, screaming at the top of her lungs and calling him a complete idiot for being so reckless. Her anger is built on a decade of trauma. She knows the suffocating fear of being hunted by assassins, and she begs Yuru to understand that running away isn't a sign of weakness. It's a way to actually value his life. However, Yuru's refusal to hide does more than just challenge her. By standing his ground, he is effectively offering to shoulder the terror she's been facing alone, finally giving her a partner in a struggle she's carried for 10 years. His demons, left and right, are clearly impressed. They exchange toothy grins with Gabi, watching their new master take control of the room. The tension in Asa's shoulders finally drops. She lowers her head in quiet gratitude, acknowledging that she no longer has to be the only one protecting their family's future. Gonzo Kagimori sees an opportunity in the silence. He offers Yuru a permanent place within the clan, promising absolute safety and every resource needed. Yuru rejects the offer immediately. He can never see eye to eye with those who brought violence to his home. These high walls are meaningless to him. He chooses the uncertain road over comfort built on the ruins of his past. He's going his own way. Yuru plans to search for their parents on his own terms, relying on Dara to navigate the dangers outside the compound. Asa drops to her knees on the tatami, bowing deeply to Dara and the massive deities. She has no power to stop Yuru, so she resorts to pleading with his guardians to keep her brother safe. Jin Kagimori escorts the group to the massive wooden gates of the estate. He stops at the threshold, noting that the protective barrier ends right at the gate's edge. Yuru looks back at the walls with a grim realization. While the estate is luxurious, Asa can't leave. In his eyes, she has simply traded a cell on the mountain for a cage made of stone and tile. Trying to lighten the mood, Asa squeezes in next to Yuru. She pulls out her phone, determined to get a selfie with her brother and his new Daemons before they go. The photo is a bust. Since Daemons are spirits, they're completely invisible to the camera, leaving Yuru and Asa standing alone in a confusingly empty shot. But Asa has something else to show him. She flits to her gallery to a different image, and Yuru's expression instantly changes. On the screen are their parents, alive and smiling in modern clothes. Seeing them in a digital photo makes their survival a physical reality. 10 years of agonizing silence are replaced by a tangible goal, proof they are out there, waiting to be found. Asa suddenly realizes she doesn't even have an address for her brother. When she asks, Yuru can barely even pronounce the name of the prefecture where he's staying. Jin offers to set up a secure email or phone link through the Tadera clan, but Dara shuts him down. He's not about to give the Kagemori family a digital footprint they can use for tracking. Yuru suggests smoke signals as a workaround. Jin has to remind him that modern fire safety laws make that a bit difficult in a city. Instead, Jin hands over a business card for a girls' bar called Love and Sincerity.
It's a family business, and they can use it as a secure, analog drop-off point for messages. Dira accepts the deal, mostly just to exploit a free bar tab. But the resulting arrangement says it all. In an era of instant tracking, the only way these two groups can talk is by leaving paper notes in a crowded bar. With the bar as their point of contact, the group turns to leave. They prepare to step past the gates and back into the line of fire. Asa calls out his name one last time. She needs to tell him the truth before he's gone, and her voice is thick with the weight of a decade of secrets. She shouts across the courtyard that their parents were heartbroken the day they escaped. They never wanted to leave him behind. Granny Yamaha had interfered, forcing them to choose between saving one child or losing both. Their true hope had always been to get away as a complete family. The lie that he was simply abandoned has finally collapsed. Instead of feeling unwanted, Yuru is left with the shock of a family actively stolen from him, a revelation that hits exactly as he steps back into the line of fire.
The tense standoff at the Kagemori Manor finally settles, ending with Yuru offering a casual, dismissive wave goodbye to Asa. But before he can even take a few steps toward the gate, Asa sprints forward and tackles him in a surprise back hug. For a hardened mountain hunter, letting someone sneak up from behind is a fatal error. Yuru goes completely rigid, face-planting into the dirt as his hyper-vigilant survival instincts utterly short-circuit in sheer panic. Her parting words echo in his head. The hardened mountain hunter's stoic facade finally crumbles. Tears well up in his eyes as he finally accepts that this girl is his true little sister. The protective wall Yuru built to survive the mountain has fallen. He stands in the open, vulnerable, and acknowledging his family for the first time. Back at the manor gates, Jin Kagemori issues a strict tactical order to his family. No one is to tail the departing group. Establishing trust is their top priority. Not everyone agrees with this hands-off approach. Hagure voices absolute concern that left and right, two massively powerful demons meant to be locked in a stalemate by a third party, are now wandering off into the city in the hands of a single, vulnerable teenager. His brother, Asuma, doesn't bother arguing. In an act of silent defiance, he narrows his pale eyes and deploys a spectral moth demon. The delicate phantom flutters out of the estate and locks onto Yuru's group, tracking them from high above as they stroll into the city. Precisely as Yuru drops his emotional guard, a new, invisible net of magical surveillance tightens around him, instantly raising the stakes of his descent into modern society. Ignorant to the tracker overhead, Dara decides it's the perfect time for a social studies lesson, throwing the ancient demons and the isolated mountain boy directly into the deep end of Tokyo. What follows is a whirlwind of pure panic.
They howl at water buses, stare at the sky tree, and recoil from subway gates. They even scream in collective terror as a monorail glides overhead. By the time they hit the horse races, the screaming continues, But now it's just Dara, sobbing pathetically amidst a sea of torn bedding slips. It's a hilarious sequence, but it paints a stark picture. Yuru is entirely unequipped to navigate the basic infrastructure of the modern world. He is a complete alien here. Yet, beneath the confusion, his brain is still firmly wired for survival. Stepping away from the track, Yuru pivots to logistics, asking the cost to buy the winning horse and an ox for daily transport. When Dara takes them to a massive hardware store for arrow supplies, Yuru earnestly asks if they sell whole deer so he can boil the hide for glue. Dara quickly explains that doing this in a modern apartment will cause immediate complaints. At checkout, the unblinking intensity of 4 lethal predators staring down a simple barcode scanner thoroughly creeps out the poor cashier. And when shopping for clothes, Dara recommends a pair of black boxers specifically because they make the blood of your enemies harder to spot. Yuru dismisses them, preferring his traditional loincloths. He might not know how a subway works, but Yuru still processes every modern convenience strictly through the lens of lethal utility and combat readiness. The moment they step out of the store, the confused tourist vanishes. Yuru's demeanor turns ice cold as his focus shifts back to his previous life. He recalls the many times he was ambushed while hunting alone on the mountain. He killed his attackers, buried them in the woods, and never questioned their origin until now. Walking through the city, Yuru notices the locals' hands. In Higashi village, elders have permanently stained nails that no scrubbing can remove. His attackers had perfectly clean hands. They were city dwellers, sent specifically to the mountain to kill him. These bandits were modern assassins dispatched to stage his death. The village elders used these outsiders to maintain their own control over the power of Seal. Dara's expression darkens as he confirms the grim reality. Only a highly select few people know the hidden route through the Higashi village barrier, narrowing their list of traitors down to the village leadership. Left cracks her knuckles, eager for a fight. Dara agrees, noting that the spoils of the hunt go to whoever secures the best position. But before they can plan a counterattack, Yuru freezes. Amidst the noise of the shopping center, his mountain intuition flares up. Looking through the crowd, Yuru identifies 3 pursuers currently tracking their movements. Dara smirks, confirming the count. Yuru has applied his mountain tracking skills to the city streets, transforming a busy shopping center into his new hunting ground. Far from the Kagamori estate, a busy city street seems like the last place someone would look for a target. But even in the middle of a crowd, Yuru and Dara are being watched. Dara's bright floral shirt makes him stand out, but he subtly identifies 3 people tailing them. Yuru is confused by Dara's lack of concern, pointing out he just walked into a magical painting at the Kagamori compound, basically a floating wanted poster. Dara explains that he was resigned to being identified the moment they entered the compound. He assumes a mansion of that size is saturated with hidden security cameras, watching visitors like turtles poking their heads out of their shells. Since they can't stay hidden from the cameras or the tails, they simply keep moving. They've accepted the surveillance as a part of doing business in the city. Back at the Kagamori Manor, the surveillance data is already being sorted. Asa is staring at the photos she took earlier, but her focus isn't on intelligence gathering. She finds Dara's grinning face distracting. Instead of handing the photo over as is, she opens a photo editing app to crop him out of the frame entirely, leaving only her brother Yuru. Jin Kagamori approaches, looking for a clear shot of Dara, a key person of interest. Asa presents her edited version, insisting she didn't get a photo of anyone but her brother. Even when Jin points out that Dara was right there in the shot, Asa refuses to cooperate. She tells him she will only share footage of Yuru, prioritizing her loyalty to her brother over the clan's information gathering. Jin is forced to send his own bodyguards to check the exterior cameras for the footage Asa is hiding. The clan's intelligence report is now missing a primary target because Asa found him annoying. The investigation moves to the Kagamori clinic, where the captured assassins are being questioned about how they managed to infiltrate the estate so easily. One of the assassins explains their route, claiming they didn't have to force their way in. She says they simply walked through the west gate because it was already standing open. The room goes quiet. Jin raises his hand to stop the interrogation, asking her to repeat exactly which gate she used. The clan head, Gonzo, steps in to clarify. He tells the assassins that the Kagamori compound has no west gate. The entire west side is bordered by a solid white wall.
The path the assassins took was an illusion. The Kagemori defenses didn't just fail to keep them out. The compound opened up a door that shouldn't exist, specifically to trap them inside. To find out who sent them, Fuyuki steps forward. His arms swell and distort, transforming into massive, muscular limbs lined with blinking, predatory eyes. Seiyuki's limbs snatch the assassin's small daemons. The animals dissolve into ghostly flames, revealing their true form, a giant, leather-bound book with stitched human lips and a skull embedded in the spine. Fuyuki introduces his daemon pair, Blacklist. He explains that whenever they touch another daemon, they can extract and record the personal information of any master, past or present, connected to it. The daemon's lips begin to move, broadcasting the woman's life story. It lists her birth date, her history as a college dropout, and the fact that she's only taking high-risk assassination jobs to pay for her mother's medical treatment. Blacklist then moves to the yin-yang daemons to extract information on the second assassin, Kenichi. It immediately reveals that his motive for the attack was to pay off his gambling debts. A security camera can track where a person goes, but Fuyuki's daemons document why they are there. It turns a private life into a searchable record. Once Blacklist has exposed their secrets, Gonzo Kagemori changes his tone. He drops the interrogation and speaks with a calm, friendly warmth to the two captives. He promises to front the cost of her mother's hospital bills. She bows in absolute gratitude. But when Kenichi asks to have his gambling debts paid, Gonzo kicks him in the face. Not all debts are worth paying. As the prisoners are led away to start their new jobs, Gonzo's demeanor shifts again. He orders Fuyuki to use the data extracted by Blacklist to find whoever is behind the attack and kill them, along with anyone else connected to the plot. By paying the hospital bills, Gonzo ensures the female assassin will work for the clan. She isn't staying because of the guards. She's staying because of the debt. Out on the veranda, Kenichi is put to work sweeping up glass. He looks over at Asa, who is holding his yin-yang demons, and asks for them back. Asa asks if he's thought of names for them yet. When he suggests ohagi and daifuku, names of traditional sweets, Asa and Gabi are delighted. They laugh at the contrast between Kenichi's rough appearance and the cute names he picked. Asa looks at the yin-yang daemons and presents the choice to them. She asks if they want to return to Kenichi now that he's given them names. The tiny daemons look over at Kenichi, who is currently being bitten by one of Gabi's multi-eyed monsters. They immediately turn back to Asa and shake their heads no. The yin-yang daemons watch their former master get bitten, then turn back to Asa, who offers a stable home. They choose to stay with her.
Even with the Kagemori Manor in ruins, the cleanup feels strangely serene. The halls are washed in bright, cheerful sunlight and sparkling pastel hues as the family begins picking up the pieces. As they sweep through the rubble, Gabi notices the two tiny yin-yang demons floating obediently by Asa's side. Since they seem perfectly docile, she casually suggests that Asa might as well take over as their master permanently. Asa taps her chin, calculating the angle. She realizes that having an extra set of eyes, or in this case floating orbs, could provide a localized security network in case any stragglers are still hiding within the manor's walls. For the Kagemoris, there is no line between mundane domestic life and battlefield preparation. Even a moment of household chores serves as a calculated move to secure the manor. Meanwhile, safely tucked inside a studio outsider room, Hagure Kagemori is sweating profusely. He's locked in a frantic, highly animated video call with Nakagami, his manga editor, who is actively melting down over a blown publishing schedule. Nakagami is desperate enough that she offers to send over a swarm of run-of-the-mill, part-time assistants, anything to get the manuscript finished on time. But Hagure declines the backup. Sipping his coffee, he casually realizes that his current house guests, Asa and Gabi, actually make exceptionally capable, completely free manuscript assistants. It's a bizarre overlap of worlds. The same warriors preparing for a potential bloodbath in the courtyard are now hunched over desks, drawing speed lines on a manga deadline. Far from the Kagemori estate, the setting shifts to a dense, neon-lit commercial district in Tokyo, where Dara and Yuru are testing out new clothes. But the disguise attempt is a failure.
Clicking his tongue in frustration, Dara scans the crowded street and confirms what he suspected. An unknown group of assassins is actively tailing them through the city. The problem is Dara's loadout. He took Yuru's billhook without asking, but then accidentally left it back at the manor, forcing him to improvise a retreat on the fly. Standing completely exposed in a civilian-filled district with heavily armed hunters on their backs, they have zero room to maneuver. They need to draw the pursuers off the open streets and into a controlled environment. Dara subtly guides Yuru away from the commercial district, weaving them deep into a tight, winding labyrinth of concrete alleyways. He slides open the door to a seemingly ordinary weathered house. Inside is a pristine, high-tech armory, lined from floor to ceiling with assault rifles, handguns, and explosives. Outside, the three men tailing them linger by the gate. They pause when an old woman with her hair in a bun strolls past, offering them tea with an innocent, grandmotherly smile. Before the men can react to her, the front door violently slides open. Dara steps out with a semi-automatic handgun and unleashes suppressing fire, forcing the terrified hunters to hit the dirt. Dara turned the urban maze into a funnel, marching them directly into his kill zone. The air around the men warps with a deafening crack. The concrete alleyways of Tokyo instantly vanish, replaced by a massive, hyper-saturated grassy plain, stretching endlessly beneath a clear blue sky. Dara lowers his weapon to explain exactly where they are. They have been pulled into a lost house, a phantom dimension generated and controlled by a pair of Tadera clan demons. To prove his point, one of the hunters bumps his foot into something hard. Half buried in the tall grass are the human skulls and rotting suits of previous trackers who were trapped in the maze and starved to death. Dara never planned to win a straight gunfight. The safe house was bait, dragging his targets into a supernatural graveyard where he held the only exit. Dara points his gun and starts demanding answers from the survivors. But Wright, Yuru's towering daemon, suddenly cuts him off, his muscles tensing as he senses a massive, uninvited threat bleeding into the dimension. Without warning, an impossibly long, pale arm violently shoots down from the clouds. With a sickening crunch, it instantly obliterates the head of the man standing closest to Dara. The grassy field descends into absolute slaughter. A colossal pale leg drops from the sky, stomping a second man flat into the dirt, before the impossibly long arm sweeps sideways and completely liquidates the final survivor. Looming above the blood-soaked grass are two bizarre entities. One has legs stretching out of sight. The other has arms reaching for miles, and both wear deeply manic, unsettling grins as they look down at their work. Left and right step between the giants and Yuru. Their expressions harden into pure ferocity, recognizing exactly what they are facing: the Tanaga Ashinaga, an ancient and brutal pair from Japanese folklore. Dara's flawless trap has been hijacked by something far older and more violent. The hunters are dead, the dimension is compromised, and Dara and Yuru are left fighting to survive